I would like to call the business meeting of the Portland Board of Public Education to order. It is Tuesday, June 10th, 2025. We're meeting in a hybrid format with some of us here at Casco Bay High School and some online via Zoom. Vice Chair Bondo is going to be joining us from Zoom, and possibly Board Member Ali. Board Member Noor is not available to join us, and Board Member Bryden is just running a couple of minutes late. So more folks will be here very soon. Dr. Warren, would you go ahead and call the roll, please?
Member Ali. Member Yusra Ali.
Present.
Vice Chair Bondo.
Present.
Member Bryden. Member Lena.
Here.
Member Noor. Member Opperman.
Here.
Student Representative Fitzgerald.
Here.
Student Representative Kantiba.
Yes.
Student Representative Lee.
Here.
Student Representative O'Brien.
Here.
Student Representative Ziegler.
Here.
Chair Lentz.
Present. Thank you. And now the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Portland Public Schools recognizes the original inhabitants of the land on which our city and schools stand. The Wolastoqey, or Maliseet, Micmac, Penobscot, and Passamaquoddy tribes, known collectively as the Wabanaki Confederacy, or people of the Dawnland. We are honored to have Wabanaki children among our students today, and as a district, we are committed to making the past, present, and future of the Wabanaki peoples visible in our schools and classrooms. And now, Student Representative Lee, if you wanted to read our mission and our definition of equity.
All right, our mission. The Portland Public Schools is responsible for ensuring a challenging, relevant, and joyful education that empowers every learner to make a difference in the world. We build relationships among families, educators, and the community to promote the healthy development and academic achievement of every learner. And our definition of equity. Equity is all people being held to high expectations and having access to opportunities that are reflective of their individual needs, identities, and experiences. Equity is achieved in Portland Public Schools when there are no identifiable differences in outcomes and experiences for any population subgroup. Thank you.
Thank you, Student Representative Lee. Now we are going to move on to public comment. This is public comment that is not related to anything that's on the agenda tonight. So if you're here to speak toward cell phone policy, that will be in just a little bit. I would like to make an exception for that. If there's a student here in the room that wants to give public comment that has other competing timing for other things, you may use this time if that works better for you and your schedule. So right now, if you would like to give public comment for something not related to cell phones, or if you are a student who needs an exception, you can come up to the microphone or raise your hand in Zoom. Okay, I'm seeing no hands on Zoom and no bodies here coming up to the podium. So we're going to go ahead and close this section of public comment. But I will, when we get to the cell phone policy, I'll read the guidelines for public comment then. Let's see. So I'm going to just give a few short remarks and keep us moving. So first, I would just want to congratulate all of our graduates, the class of 2025. Deering High School, Casco Bay High School, and Portland High School have all held ceremonies, and Portland Adult Education will have ceremonies later this month. They have truly been joyful experiences to witness, and I just want to say congratulations, graduates. I also want to thank all of the educators, staff, and family members who supported these students along the way. We are incredibly lucky to have a community that is so deeply invested. I also want to recognize our Make It Happen graduates. Talk about a joyful ceremony. That was beautiful. And also the educators who are in our Elevating Educators program. They had a beautiful ceremony as well recently. Another way our community has shown up in the last few weeks is by engaging deeply in conversations around potential changes both in our cell phone policy and school boundaries. The community sessions have all been very well attended. We've had participants expressing diverse views about challenges and benefits in each of these bodies of work. And I truly believe that those community sessions and conversation and feedback have landed us in a better place around these policies and bodies of work. So I am really grateful to everyone that has given up night times to be there and time to take surveys. And finally, I want to thank everybody that voted today. If you're listening at home and you haven't voted, you can still get to the polls. They're open until 7 o'clock. The stickers this year are really cool. They're branded just for Portland. I don't know if anybody noticed that today, but it's worth the vote. So thank you for everybody that has voted today. And at our next meeting on June 17th, we'll be welcoming a new board member into this body, and then we'll move into our July recess where we don't have any board meetings. And so with that, I'm now going to turn it over to one of our student representatives, Representative O'Brien, to give the student remarks from Paths High School. Go ahead whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Chair. Paths has just finished recruiting season, and we are now in the process of building the next class. Typically, we end up with upwards of 430 students. With this new student body, Portland High School will now be the largest sending school. This year it was Greene and Gloucester. Currently, 37% of students are from Portland Public Schools, and 31% of our student body is made up of women. The majority of students at Paths continue to be those who identify as male. It is a goal Paths is working towards to be more intentionally encouraging of the interest, engagement, and recruitment of women. Now, at the end of the year, students have qualified to earn many certifications. These are all third-party certifications, industry certifications recognized in the workforce. In total, 466 certifications have been earned by students. For example, in the biomedical program, students earned the CNA certification with a 100% pass rate. The food service students earned ServSafe certifications, and many students are now AWS certified welders. And in the Careers and Education program, second-year students have earned their certification as behavioral health professionals. Those are only a few, and many students are continuing to hear back. This year, the leaving class is made up of 193 students. Out of this group, 16% will be going directly into the workforce. 32% will be attending community colleges next year, and another 32% will be attending four-year schools. That's 64% of students choosing to pursue higher education after Paths, with 786 college credits in total that were earned while at Paths across the student body. These credits go on a real college transcript. I feel this is especially important to point out to further show that going to Paths, a career and technical education school, does not mean a student would necessarily opt out of higher education. It's not an either-or situation. This year as well, 34 students have been named in the National Technical Honor Society. This means that these students maintain a GPA of 92% or higher and do not miss more than 5 days of school throughout their entire time in a program. Paths also has students attending Nationals for Skills USA in Atlanta. You may not know that Skills USA is a competitive platform for students in CTE programs. It gives CTE students the chance to compete with and showcase those skills, like in the areas of commercial arts and auto tech. Given the relevance to this meeting in particular, I want to take the opportunity to describe the situation of cell phone use and policy at Paths. Paths has a diverse array of programs, and with this, the cell phone policy is different throughout the building. It is required that each program must have a policy and implementation for regulation, but it looks different in each classroom. The Paths administration is aware of each of these policies and knows where they come in terms of enforcement and implementation of consequences when it comes to that point. The policy has and continues to work well for Paths, and it allows teachers to be pragmatic with strategies that make sense for their specific learning environment. It also allows for flexibility with students navigating transportation to and from their sending schools, often in the middle of the day. Inevitably, phones and communication are part of that process. But not just with necessity for coming from transportation. It also allows space if programs are aided by cell phones or not. The important thing is that cell phone policy is executed as it makes sense, case by case, and effectively. For example, in my program, Careers in Education, instructed by Eva Rod, the policy is that phones can never be in the pre-K classroom, in part practicing the structure that comes with being an educator, but also further ensuring the confidentiality that comes with working with real students. There are slightly different expectations for our time spent in the high school classroom, separate from the preschool room, depending on what the agenda is, but phones are always to be off and away during a lesson. These standards are understood and they make sense to all students, just as any classroom norms would be accepted. Anyway, I'm sure we'll hear plenty of that tonight. Thank you for your time. I'm happy to answer if there are any questions.
Thank you, Student Representative O'Brien. Are there any questions from the board? Yeah, Board Member Opperman, go ahead.
Thank you, Member O'Brien. In welding class, do they have their cell phones out?
I can't speak specifically as I'm not a student in that program.
Okay, I'm seeing a no from the director. Thank you.
I just wanted to say thank you for that update. I really feel like that is like the comprehensive data that you shared in that update was just really exciting. And I'm not sure that we've had that before. So I just really appreciate the effort that you put in to collecting that and helping us see like the wide variety of the outcomes that are happening there. And for highlighting it not being a binary, that students can go to paths and pursue higher education. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Any other questions or thoughts from the board? All right. So thank you again. And now I'm going to pass it over to Superintendent.
Good evening, community. Excuse me. Good evening, community. Good evening, board members. I have two just very quick notes, recognizing that tonight could be a relatively long night. First, just last week during graduation, I had the opportunity to read out some of the accolades and achievements of our seniors or our graduates, as well as their plans for life post Portland Public Schools. And just an extremely impressive group and an honor to stand next to them for graduation. And so strongly encourage everybody next year, if you have a moment, to join one of those celebrations. They do a great job of capturing the spirit of each of the schools. Before tonight's board meeting, we had the opportunity to also celebrate a group of staff that are retiring at the end of this year. And one of the things that we do is we ask our school community to write little blurbs about them that capture their contributions. And it's just impressive, the range of acknowledgments there from folks that have worked for 9 years to, I think the highest was 41 this year. And just the contributions, whether it's driving a bus, being a custodian, teaching a class, what they've given to make Portland the great district that it is, and to make sure that all students have a joyful, rigorous learning environment, was just great to celebrate them. It's going to be unfortunate to lose their experience next year. And so anybody who wants to, we will share the advertisement for substitute teaching. We'd love to have you back. Chair, I'd like to give the time back to you.
Beautiful. And do we have an elementary update tonight?
Yes, sorry. Angela.
Oh, you guys might see a lot of me tonight, but this first one is just brief. So I'm going to go ahead and share. This is my last update of the year. So 3 things that I wanted to bring to you today. One is just a highlight on Maine community swimming. We're getting ready for summer, so swimming is a good topic to have on your mind. The other thing is a strategic focus on chronic absenteeism. I started the year with that focus and wanted to let you know where we were finishing things up. And then also just wanted to share some information about upcoming celebratory events in our 5th grade classrooms. So First, I think it's been really exciting this year. This year we had, this spring, we had all second graders at Reike, East End, and Presumpscot schools taking swimming lessons during the school day at the Reike pool through the city of Portland and Maine Community Swimming. So next year, that is a community organization started by former educator Brooke Teller, and they are really doing great work, and we're lucky to partner with them. And then next year, we will be able to include Ocean Avenue School with that group at Reike. And then in the fall, when the Talbot pool opens, Maine Community Swimming will help us with the other 4 mainland elementary schools to schedule lessons at Talbot. So I'm going to knock on wood that the Talbot pool opens on time and that we get to do that in the fall. I also want to let folks know, I'll let Dr. Ahmed speak to that another night, but Maine Community Swimming does also work with our secondary schools. So, and then let's see. And then I wanted to share our updates on chronic absenteeism. I also want to highlight that the image that you see here is taken from our new Power School dashboards. So that's a little bit of an exciting development. That data is super easily accessible, very easy to just download the image and present it here. And so I just want to thank the board and our community for helping us to invest in that tool to help make data more accessible to school leaders. And next year it will be accessible to teachers. So for where we stand at this point in the year, 56.87% of our K-5 students have strong attendance. That's the green bar there. And less than 15% are chronically absent. So it's not bad, but I think we could do better. So I'll give you the other thing I wanted to point out is that kindergarten continues to be the grade with the most chronically absent students, K-5. You can see where they have 18% of students chronically absent in kindergarten, and that pattern is something that holds in many other communities around the country. The other thing, this is, I think, a little bit celebratory. We have only 2 elementary schools that will be ending the year with chronic absenteeism rates above 15%. Last year, you can see we have one at 17% chronic absenteeism on the far right. And then the third one in, we have one school that will end the year around 21% chronically absent students. So last year we ended the year with 4 of our elementary schools with chronic absenteeism rates above 15%. So it's good to see some of that change. I do want to highlight, however, that our actual overall chronic absenteeism across K-5 last year was a bit lower than it is this year. That's also a pattern that I know some other districts nearby have experienced this year, where they saw some greater decreases in chronic absenteeism last year and saw it kind of bump up a little bit. I don't know if it was like a especially heavy illness year at this time, or if there were some other factors that were contributing to that. But what that means to me is that really the bottom line is that we are still struggling with chronic absenteeism. We had the opportunity today to look at some of our historical data. And so before the pandemic, we definitely had, and we still do have some schools that are having rates below 10%, but it was much more common to have those chronic absenteeism rates be much closer to 10% than they are now. So just to let you know some things that we do have prepared to start the year out next year. We will be rolling out monthly attendance reports for all schools next year. We had those in a couple of schools this year, kind of as a pilot initiative. That just helps to keep parents informed of actually how absent have students been, and so that they can be mindful of that. We are also providing support through Count Me In to our schools with the highest chronic absenteeism rates. So that's a step that we're already putting together. We'll continue to build our attendance playbook for our school attendance teams. And then we'll continue to kind of send the message that school attendance is important for learning and social development, even at kindergarten, and that strong attendance leads to better academic outcomes, and it also supports stronger relationships between students, families, and educators. So you may continue to hear, I expect you'll continue to hear us saying those same messages next year. Then just to some exciting celebratory events. I've shared the upcoming list of 5th grade promotion ceremonies and celebrations. I also want to highlight, this is one of our recent music concerts at Reiki Elementary School, and you can see lead teacher Annie Dolphin joining in on the concert there. And I just want to thank Audrey Cabral, who arranged to have some of our school leaders join in these school concerts. And it's really great to have a school leader as a star guest at our elementary school concerts. The other thing to highlight are some things that are coming up for the summer. I'm just sharing this information is posted on our website about the summer meal sites to remind people that we do have summer meal sites where folks can get free meals throughout the summer with their children and teens. And then also just want to remind folks that at the elementary level, we are hosting the Learning Works Summer Camp. And that is for students at East End, Rowe. It will be at East End and Rowe, but it's open to students who qualify at Ocean Ave, Presumpscot, Talbot, and Reiki. It is a partial day program on Monday and Thursday mornings, runs from June 30th to August 7th. Breakfast, lunch, and transportation are provided, so you can see your school leader if you are interested. And if there are any questions,
What questions do board members have? Board member Opperman, go ahead.
I'm glad to see you're using Power School. Will the information on absenteeism go directly out to parents through Power School, or will we do it some other way? Because Power School can have a parent piece.
So the reports that have been developed this year have been through Reach My Teach. So that's what we will continue using next year. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions from folks? Yeah, board member Bryden, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you so much for that information. I also am very excited about Power Schools. So my question has to do with you said that there was a slight uptick in students who are chronically absent. And I don't want to get into a conversation about reasons for that, but it did make me think about potential reasons why it might continue to increase. And I'm curious about safety concerns and other reasons why kids might be staying home and whether we are thinking about ways to support them if they are at home.
I would really want to take a deeper dive into the reasons that folks are calling in absence before I comment on that. I really do think whenever we looked at this earlier in the year, when we saw it starting to tick up, what was showing up are the illnesses that were happening in that kind of that winter into spring. And that's what we were hearing the majority of. That doesn't mean that there might be some other patterns that, but that is what was coming through at that time.
Okay, super. And I trust that you would continue to monitor and address.
Yeah.
Thank you
absolutely.
so much.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chair.
Yeah, and Vice Chair Bondo, I'll be with you in just a second, but I just wanted to build on that because I just think that we're seeing more and more of our student groups being attacked and threatened. So if we do start to get data around that, I think this board would be more than supportive to see if we can find resources to help with that. So please let us know.
Yep.
Vice Chair Bondo, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Dr. Atkinson, for the presentation. I have two quick questions about chronic absenteeism. I know maybe you may not have that one on the top of your head. The Macken Veto students, absentees around the elementary school. So I'm just wondering because a lot of our families are moving out from family shelters and other areas. So I'm just wondering if we have some disaggregate numbers or some of those specific students.
Yeah.
And
So,
no?
Our McKinney-Vento students or our students who are unhoused definitely have some of our highest rates of chronic absenteeism. From memory, I think it was probably around 30%. I hate to, don't quote me on that or
Right.
whatever. I'd want to go back, but I'm pretty sure it is close to that. So that is that is one of the subgroups that we see having higher rates.
Okay. So when I see our strategies, I see we're using the Count Me In. What's the most effective on those strategies that we use across different schools so far?
Well, I'm going to talk in kind of broad strokes. And if you look at the second school in, that is one of our schools that worked with Count Me In starting in the spring of last year to rework their chronic absenteeism approach. And the recommendation at that point was to really amp up our focus on tier 1 strategies, which means like how we send the messages out to all families. So, and also really increasing some of the positive feedback that we give to students around being in school. So that particular school that had experienced higher rates of chronic absenteeism in the past has really gone around. They have tickets, so they might give out the positive tickets for when they see, for a whole class, just because they're all there. And there are a couple different strategies like that. The attendant, that school also is our school that did the monthly attendance reports to families. Those, of course, I think, so those are like the tier 1 strategies. And then I think it's also adding in the individual responses from our social work teams and our school administrators. Sometimes I think we focus maybe too much on the individual ones and not enough on the whole school messaging. And so at least that is that has been some of the feedback that we've received from Count Me In.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Doctor. So my last question is on the summer program. And I know that a couple of years we used to have some different activities during the summer. And we have some other funds to do that. So I'm just wondering, beside of the learning works, are we going to have some different activities led by the district or just the learning works during summer? And just a sub question going together. The requirement, because I see that if, like you just mentioned, like if families are interested, they can just go see the school leader. So those are the specific requirement, or you just open to all our elementary school population?
So at the elementary level, there are some different programs that are more run by the district at the secondary level. At the elementary level, we have basically 2 main programs. One is the Learning Works program, which will probably serve around 200 students. And then we have our ESY program that serves for our students who have IEPs, individual education plans, who have some additional summer programming. So, and that is for students throughout the district. So we have those 2 our main programs this year. I do hope that that's a part of our work that we grow in future years about what are some on-site program. And of course, then we have on our school sites, we have some of the programs through the Portland Recs department also use our school sites and camps and things like that. So we have things going on, but for District 1 programs, the Learning Works program is a partnership between us and Learning Works. It's part of the 21st Century Community Learning Center grants, which is a federal grant program that supports after-school programming. And that's pretty much it for elementary this summer. I hope that's something that we grow. As far as the There are, so it's, the Learning Works is just open to our 6 schools that receive Title I funding. So those are the schools that I have listed on here: Presumpscot, Talbot, Reiki, Rowe, Ocean, and East End. And there are some qualifications. Usually Learning Works supports students who are performing below expectations on our state assessment. So that's usually who they target, or who
Okay.
they support through the summer learning program.
All right. Okay. So if they support those students, so I'm just follow up to see the reflect of the beginning of the year, because those students, they go into the different grade. So are we taking those evaluation into consideration for the growth, or is just the summertime where we try to improve the learning process?
Let me also add one more thing, Board Member Bondo. The other grant that we had this year, in addition to the 21st Century Community Learning Center grant, we also applied for and won a Title I reallocation grant, which will allow us to provide some summer literacy support as part of the Learning Works program this year. So in addition to the regular Learning Works program, we are also supporting with some of our regular reading intervention programs. So that will be a little bit of an added boost to the Learning Works program for those 200 students this year. And we do, we will collect the data, and we have their data in the spring, and then again in the fall when they take the Maine through-year assessment in the fall, and we will look at that data and see if that has helped to provide more lift to students in that program.
Thank you, Dr. Atkinson, for anticipating my third question. So thank you for answering. I'm done. Thank you, Chair.
Okay.
And I just wanted to say what an exciting update about Maine community swimming. We lose a Portland Public School student almost every year to swimming accidents. And I just think that it is incredibly important that we have this built into our schools, and just really excited to see that growth. I know the foundation also supports it as well, and a lot of individuals. So just thank you to the community for making this possible for our students.
Yeah. Can I add one thing that I learned from some of our high school students who help out at Maine Community Swimming? I don't know if you remember the the grants that were here. And so talking to a student there, and I was asking, how many students, when they enter, do they learn to swim by the end? And she was like, well, not everyone. She's like, but the important thing also that students learn whenever they take swimming lessons is what their capacity is, and what they can and cannot do, and whether it's safe for them to be in shallow water or not. And so I think that, anyway, I was glad to hear that from the student, and it was time for me to be reminded of just the importance of knowing some safety around water and being awareness, in addition to swimming, which is incredibly important, and especially in a state with lots of water. So
Thank you so much for all of those updates.
yeah, thank you.
All right, so we're going to move on to the report of the secretary next. So have the consideration and action to approve the meeting minutes of May 20th. Are there any corrections to those meeting minutes? Okay, seeing no corrections, then the minutes are approved as distributed. And then up next, we have the consideration and action to approve changes to policy JFCK, which is the student use of cellular telephones and other electronic devices. I'll call for a motion in just a moment to bring that to the floor. But just to remind folks in the room and for all board members, so this is a process that has been going on for quite some time. There was work groups that started over the summer last year, and then the Policy and Curriculum Committee took this up after in the spring of this year and made some changes. It was approved within that policy committee and then came to the board for first read. Since it has been at the board level, we have done numerous community engagement sessions with families, parents, community organizations, students, educators, to really try to hear from as many folks as possible about the challenges and benefits within these possible changes. Additionally, we had a survey that went out that anyone that was connected to the district could take. We got over 1,200 responses to that. And I think that is just like a really great indicator to the amount of engagement that we have had, plus I would say easily several hundred emails around this. So I think that this is something that people feel deeply about and see it deeply connected to the work that we are doing here. So, regardless of how this unfolds tonight, I am just very deeply proud of the process that has happened around this policy change. I think one thing that I have especially noted is people's ability to listen to other people in group conversation and really trying to understand each other's perspectives. I think that combination has really led to some good outcomes. So just gratitude for that. So just to remind folks how this works, once we have the motion on the floor, we'll take public comment, and then any amendments could be offered from the board. If there's an amendment, we would vote on the amendment, and then we'd have an amended policy on the floor that then we would move forward. It can get a little cyclical in nature as we move through it. So everybody, if you have questions, student representatives, board members, feel free to ask them along the way. So with that, I'd be looking for a motion for the consideration and action to approve the changes to policy JFCK, the student use of cellular telephones and other electronic devices. Board Member Opperman?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you, Board Member Bryden. So are there any questions from the board or student representatives right now on the policy that is on the floor right now? Yeah.
Could I just don't understand exactly what the changes are, and I would like to know those.
Yes. So there have been no changes to the draft since it comes up from the committee. So what happens next, though, is we will have public comment, and then myself and Board Member Bryden have worked on an amendment that we're going to bring to the floor for discussion and potential acceptance.
Thank you.
Yeah. See that one. Okay. I see no other questions from the board. Let me just double check Zoom really quickly. Okay. Vice Chair Bondo, thank you for your patience as I flip back and forward. So now would be the time for public comment on this issue. Before we start public comment, I'm going to just go over the guidelines. So members of the public may speak on this subject, but not on personnel matters or complaints concerning specific employees or students. Comments are limited to a maximum of 3 minutes or 6 minutes for individuals using an interpreter to make their comment. Individuals may not relinquish a portion of their allotted time to another speaker. The board may not respond to comments, and please refrain from responding in the audience. Speakers must refrain from engaging in disruptive conduct, including but not limited to using vulgar and/or obscene language, threatening others using words or by other actions, using pejorative or discriminatory language with reference to a person or group on the basis of their religion, ethnicity, nationality, race, color, descent, gender, or other identity factor, making defamatory comments, exceeding the allotted time limits, talking over or interrupting others, offering repetitive comments, and offering comment on matters unrelated to the school district's programs, policies, or operations. I will stop any public comment that is contrary to these rules. To give public comment, you can come forward to the podium or raise your hand in Zoom. I'll call on you, and then you can introduce yourself with your name and address, and we'll alternate if needed between Zoom and in person. I'll keep the time, and we'll raise a yellow folder indicating that you have 30 seconds remaining, and then a red folder signifying the end of your time. If you get to the end of your time, you can ask for more if you need it. So with that, I would like to open public comment. If you'd like to give public comment, you can come up to the podium. Great. I think we have one on Zoom, so we'll go ahead and start there. So Ernest Braun, go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and push the allow to talk button. Go ahead, Ernest, whenever you're ready.
Is my voice coming through?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Wonderful, thanks. My name is Ernest Braun, 171 Congress Street. I am a substitute teacher, dedicated substitute at Casco Bay High School. And at the previous school board meeting, I spoke about the importance of adopting this new policy and the importance of freeing our classrooms from the grip of personal technology that is so distracting and so detrimental to learning and personal growth of students, and often exacerbates inequities in the class. And I just want to add on to that tonight, as you go into the vote and consider amendments. I just want to add that I think this policy, the implementation of this policy will be probably rocky, and I wonder if there may be a temptation to soften the blow in a way that actually just undermines the effectiveness of removing cell phones from the classroom wholesale. Of course, I understand that there will be exceptions, but I am wary of exceptions that will actually undermine the policy and its effectiveness. And I hope that we can, find resources and work through the difficulties of this change in a way that does not end up just looking like reverting back to our current policy and our current prevalence of cell phones in the classroom, which is not working for us. And that's all. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ernest. If there's anyone in the room that would like to give public comments, please come forward.
Very tall. Good evening, board members, community members. My name is Osgood. I use they, them pronouns, and I live at 83 Beckett Street in Portland. I am the executive director of Portland Outright, an organization that has been supporting and advocating for Maine's LGBTQ youth community since 1988. I'm a long haul partner of Portland Schools and really appreciate the opportunity to speak here today. I'm here in my role at Portland Outright, encouraging you to vote against the current bell-to-bell cell phone policy and really to amplify a lot of the voices of students who are actively engaging in their civic process, who have spoke about some of the ways that this policy might have unintended consequences. As an organization, we absolutely support the integration of boundaries, keeping classroom cell phone free, but are really concerned about the potential for search and seizure, for restricting access to communication tools throughout the day. Our schools deserve a comprehensive technology policy that considers the needs of students from historically marginalized communities, the current reality of Maine's young adults, and evidence-based research on adolescent mental health. This policy, while well-intended, is a classic example of a techno-panic, a specific type of moral panic focused on the negative impacts of a certain kind of technology. Techno-panics often involve intense public, political, and academic responses to new technologies, especially when they are used by young people. These have happened across time with advances in radios, television, and even books with the invention of the printing press in the 15th century. We are all here tonight because of true and authentic investment in our students' safety, well-being, and autonomy. We hope you'll consider the unintended consequences, though. This policy is unfortunately following a troubling trend in local and national politics to police, control, and limit the power of young people. Across the country, trans students are being subjected to daily threats to their participation in school life and community safety. And in Maine, we have been watching administrators and educators testify in support of bills that would allow for the suspension of K through 5th graders. And just a few days ago, both chambers of the Maine legislature advanced LD 1248, a bill that would make it easier for school staff to restrain and seclude students, weakening a law passed in 2021 that we helped work on that restricted those practices that cause lasting trauma. This policy, while just about cell phones, uses the same talking points about controlling students, classroom management, and mental health issues that require a punitive response. We worry about the impact on queer students and students of color who are always impacted by bans and criminalization first and more deeply. As a queer organization, we have the vantage point to see this push springing out of broader parental rights movements, which seek to control students' access to information, behavior, and communication. It should cause us pause that we are watching these happen rapidly across the country at the same time that we are seeing the policing of our most vulnerable communities. One size fit all abstinence only models do not work in any scenario. We need our youth deserve non-punitive harm reduction models that center dialogue, repair, and practice the very healthy boundaries that young folks need to have to equip them post-school. Please vote down this policy because it is underdeveloped and work with us to build a new one in the next school year. Thank you.
Thank you. If anyone else would like to give public comment, please come up to the microphone.
Hello, my name is Simone Trombley. I live on 5 Terrace Drive, Wyndham, Maine. I have other connections to Portland I'll get into. Hello, board members. I'm Simone. I'm a member leader of Portland Outright, Portland Youth Organizing Group. Osgood just was speaking on behalf of them. I am too. I'm a rising sophomore at Baxter Academy in Portland, and I'm a Portland community member, and I have friends in the school district. I come to testify with a measured voice of reason, opposing this movement to ban cell phones, bell to bell within the Portland School District. I come from an educator family who work or have worked as classroom teachers, ed techs, and instructional designers to this day. I am well familiarized and strongly sympathize with the burnout of teachers and the cost of phones to modern day education. I also am an extremely calculated and observant character who has seen the cost to vulnerable students like myself of banning cell phones and using punitive and exhaustive enforcement methods. As much as I detest the forced implementation of phones into our lives by tech companies, we live in a world where we are given very little choice but to rely on phones. For one, I want to point out that banning cell phones with abstinence-like policies will directly disadvantage and fail to prepare all PHS students for adult life. The need and use of cell phones is nuanced and has no cut and dry solution. Universally among students of today, all will be needing to learn how to effectively use phones for adulthood while addressing responsible phone use. A blanket ban universally will fail to prepare students for adulthood, which is supposed to be the purpose of a high school. On top, I've already faced and seen the costs of bans and punitive measures around phone use on vulnerable student demographics. I'm disabled and I need my phone as an accessibility aid. A culture of suspicion around phone use makes me a target of punishment for being disabled. I've seen these bans react the same to students who speak little to no English, especially when kids need to talk and socialize with English-speaking classmates using translators. As a student who has been endangered by severe bullying as well, phones have been a lifeline to record and deter students who have targeted me for being trans in my past school. These bans will directly and more severely impact students who are more vulnerable and will lead to suspicion and need to prove and justify having basic needs. Moving to conclude my testimony, these bans push aside the need for responsible cell phone use, directly failing to prepare students to live and function in a world that forces us to contend with constant technological development. Meanwhile, also directly punishing, bringing suspicion to, and harming vulnerable student demographics like those who are disabled, being bullied, unhoused, or don't speak English, or new Mainers. I want to briefly voice my consensus that our solution of these yonder pouches is a total waste of desperately needed funds that could go towards paying teachers more or for supplies. It is too soon to decide on passing this ban, and there is far too much at stake for students to simply enact a bell-to-bell cell phone ban and push aside such a burgeoning issue with such a band-aid solution. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to give public comment? Is there anyone online that would like to give public comment?
Was there anyone online? I'm sorry, I didn't.
Go ahead. No, you're perfect. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Lily Sage. I live at 44 Exeter Street. I am a first-year teacher at Portland High School and also an elder member of Gen Z. I am here speaking in support of a cell phone ban. and ideally the policy as proposed without watering down. I believe that a phone ban will help students focus, better socialize, and detox from the omnipresent screens, at least during the school day. When we allow phones in students' pockets or in their bags or anywhere within their reach or view, we are inviting distraction into the classroom. Even when they are untouched, cell phones beckon and they steal, fragment students' attention. It is up to individual teachers currently to mitigate that pull and to police phones. I cannot catch it all, although I try on a daily basis, right? Students are trying to sneak phones at some point during the day, and I don't mind that that is part of my job, but I resent the hold that phones do have on our students' minds. Schools that have gone phone-free have seen a reduction in the achievement gap, and this could be one of the simplest, most affordable, and most effective ways that we could boost equity and mitigate socioeconomic disparities across our student populations. I do believe that the district can't afford not to pass a phone ban. I have seen students themselves acknowledging the outsized role that their phones play in their lives, but also express a feeling of powerlessness to stop it. I feel that as adults in their community, it is sort of our moral responsibility to be firm when students are struggling. In the halls and during passing periods and at lunchtime, I see students that are present physically, but not necessarily mentally, socially, emotionally. The screens provide a wall between students and their peers. And we cannot forget the valuable importance of socializing during the school day. That is also learning, and it is learning that is taken away by screens. I want students to graduate and become adult community members who know how to talk with one another because they have practiced doing so in school, and this is one way that we can encourage that basic form of citizenship. I have also, as an elder Gen Zer, experienced the shift to a phone-based childhood myself in real time. I was in middle school in 2012, got my first phone in 2013. Don't tell my students, actually, I just outed myself as, oh no. But I remember, right, the drastic cliff that it felt like I walked off. I remember the change almost overnight. I don't want to be dramatic, but in my mental health and well-being, I remember that feeling of being addicted, although I didn't know it at the time. And it has taken a really measured effort in my adult life now that I have the fully developed prefrontal cortex to mitigate this pull. I have had to put a lot of effort into changing the role of the phone in my life. So I encourage us to do right by our students and be bold. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. You can come on up.
Hello, my name is Lisa Shepard. I live at 101 Craigie Street in Portland. I'm a parent of a third grader at Rowe Elementary. She has her opinion here that she wrote out during class. The teachers were asking. She is for this ban. She has yet to be touched by the digital world other than TV and a little bit of iPad time. She does not have her own device, so she doesn't know what's to come, and I do, as her mother. I began thinking about my daughter's experience in schools last year when her first peer got a phone in second grade. I couldn't believe it, and I couldn't stand the thought that our days of a digital-free childhood were soon to be coming to a close. When I realized I could change that. I could, together with her school and our community, bring awareness to the loneliness epidemic, share copies of The Anxious Generation with parents of the city of Portland, and look to the schools, the institutions we entrust with our students and their attention day in and day out. That's how I came to co-found the Small But Mighty Phone-Free Portland Schools group. We have been meeting throughout the year, gathering facts from other states and schools who have implemented similar bans and are shouting the positive impacts from the rooftops. And we have listened to concerns and the opposition with open hearts and minds. We are seeing real momentum. A community petition supporting the bell-to-bell policy has already gained 250 signatures of students, parents, and educators who believe that this is the right direction for our students. We know the opposition, we've heard the opposition, and we have concrete and proven solutions for every concern. We are not just advocating for change, we are committed to supporting schools through implementation to ensure this transition is successful. Now is the time to take action that aligns with student well-being, academic focus, and long-term school improvement. We are ready. Let's do the right thing together and give our children a break from these devices. Thank you.
Thank you. You can come on up.
Hi, hello. My name is Sophie, and I am a youth member and perpetual intern at Portland Outright, and I'm here to speak against this policy on behalf of our campaign, School Resources, Not Officers. Before I start, I would like to share my appreciation for the Board of Education at large and Portland Schools' commitment to making education and their schools accessible and equitable for all students. I deeply appreciate how serious this district takes its role as a model system for the rest of Maine schools. Keeping those appreciations in mind, we urge this board to vote this policy down. Regardless of amendments, the heart of this policy is a punitive one. A bell-to-bell ban is reminiscent of zero-tolerance policies, abstinence-only education, and the DARE program, all of which rely on a culture of fear and shame. They often lead to more harm rather than achieving their actual goal of creating a safe and healthy learning community. This policy relies on the fear of taking away students' communication and connection to the outside world. There is no mention of how this policy will encourage mindfulness, intentional relationship building, or healthy boundaries around technology. Banning cell phones because there is a technology moral panic and our schools are too tired to reinforce boundaries and do meaningful repair is not the answer. This bell-to-bell ban doesn't serve anyone in the long term. Let me make our position clear. We support the appropriate use of cell phones and personal technology in school, unless prompted by an educator, whether they be student or adult. There is often no reason for anyone in a learning space to use their cell phone. We support creating healthy boundaries around technology, but that requires an evidence-based curriculum that accounts for students' agency to choose, not a complete banning. There is no aspect of this current policy that respects youth and students as people with needs that most adults in this room would consider to be adult worries. About 8% of Portland students, are McKinney-Vento students, or in other words, unhoused or at risk of being unhoused. Those are the students that are listed and documented. That number does not account for the students that don't share their housing status for one reason or another, and a large portion of those students are LGBTQ. And under this policy, these students and others like them are placed at a disadvantage and risk their housing or shelter in order to be compliant with this policy. Over 50% of Portland students are economically disadvantaged in ways that have different needs. These students need to take buses, make appointments, pick up siblings, or consider logistics for the rest of their day outside of the classroom.
Do you like additional time?
Yes, please. Thank you.
About 30 seconds. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Asking these students to choose between their family, job, or their own personal well-being and their education seems to contradict the very standards of equity and accessibility that Portland schools hold. We know that there are other strategies that are flexible and encourage mindfulness. These strategies often cost nothing. One Philadelphia educator encourages mindfulness and intentionality by asking her students to leave the room if they need to look or use their phone. However, this proposed policy would cost Portland Public Schools almost $200,000 to buy each student a Yonder pouch. To put that into perspective, it's about the same cost of 3 social workers, 380 brand new Chromebooks, 1,500 new McGraw-Hill biology textbooks, and 12,665 packs of 72 count number 2 pencils. We're not here in opposition to healthy boundaries, but this punitive policy would cost Portland Public Schools $200,000 and the loss of a beautiful culture that encourages relationship building and progressive discipline. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, board members. Good evening, community. My name is August Chandler. I live on 90 Devon Street. I'm a student here and a member of Portland Outright, and I am here to oppose the proposed cell phone policy. I'd like to make it clear that I in no way oppose a figurative cell phone ban. I absolutely have witnessed the challenges that teachers face every day trying to regulate phone use, however, I believe the proposed cell phone ban needs revision. Successful policies prioritize harm reduction, safety, and support, and this policy in its current form relies too heavily on a punitive structure. It negatively impacts communication, student autonomy, and the safety of marginalized individuals. The policy states that exceptions to the ban will be limited and almost exclusive to people who require personal technology for documented health reasons. However, there are many reasons why personal tech may be imperative for a student to function within a school, not necessarily in class, but in a school. Things like individual safety, mental health, and general well-being go beyond formal documentation, and that's not even to speak of the students who cannot access the resources to said formal documentation. Students greatly benefit from having access to their support network while in school, not classes, but school, for emotional regulation with people they trust. Not every student is going to have a solid enough relationship with teachers or administration to share their needs, and that is just a reality we live in. In a time where our country is enabling mass ICE raids and kidnappings that leave certain communities vulnerable locally, it is more important than ever that students have family or resources outside of the building if need be. A rigid bell-to-bell cell policy effectively shuts down this network of support. A more fitting policy would be one where students with pressing needs can access their phones during free periods, so students are not entirely cut off from this network and can still be focused during class and achieve this necessary detox. This policy is also dangerous for marginalized members of the community. It is evident that every action taken to incorporate punitive measures into schools disproportionately affects students of color and queer people. Not only is this policy vague on the actions that will be taken if a student violates it, it also states that the student's device will be subject to search if there is reasonable suspicion that a student violates board policies. I am extremely concerned that this current provision will be used to violate the privacy of students at risk of being overly policed. With all this in mind, I strongly believe this policy needs to be revised by students and teachers and board members to better fit the needs of the community and protect marginalized students before it is passed. Thank you.
Thank you. Coming up.
Hello. My name is Matthew Hosmer. I'm a teacher here at Cascade High School. My address is 419 Cumberland Avenue. I would like to open my comment with a quote. And the quote is, "How do we consume as much of your time and conscious attention as possible?" I'm going to attribute this quote to Sean Parker, who was the first president of the Facebook Corporation in 2017. He went on to describe how his platform and other social media companies use a social validation feedback loop, that's a quote, to, quote, exploit a vulnerability in human psychology, end quote. Social media apps need to, quote, give you a little dopamine hit every once in a while, end quote, to re-engage you and keep you on the platform. This tactic of intruding into your attention span is the business model of social media companies. They make money by keeping you scrolling on their app and maximizing their marketing revenue by having more eyes on their platform than any other. This has the additional effect of keeping your attention away from anything that is less enjoyable than consuming media or socializing online. I think it's important to note that as a society, we generally recognize that marketing addictive products to children and teenagers is wrong. Less than 40 years ago, in 1986, only 11% of public schools had policies banning smoking on school grounds for administration, teachers, and other staff. But in 2 years, in 1988, did that percentage jump up to about 95% of schools due to policies initiated by school boards, district administrators, teachers, administration staff, parents, community members, and students. We recognize that it is in the best interest of our youth to reduce the exposure of market forces that subconsciously encourage our students to use their products. Eventually, our nation banned nicotine products in schools and other public spaces for the same reason that I believe we should ban phones in schools. The tool that is a computer that we call a smartphone is packaged with an addictive algorithm that is causing harm to the social, emotional, and physical health of our youth. Tristan Harris is a former Google employee who left the company to found the Center for Humane Technology. And in a testimony to Congress, he said, quote, "In an attention economy, there's only so much attention the advertising business model always wants more. So it becomes a race to the bottom of the brainstem. It starts small, first to get your attention. I add a slot machine, pull the refresh rewards, which create little addictions. I remove stopping cues for infinite scroll, so your mind forgets when to do something else. But then that's not enough. As attention gets more competitive, we have to crawl deeper down the brainstem to your identity and get you addicted to gaining attention from other people. By adding the number of followers and likes, technology hacks our social validation. Now people are obsessed with the constant feedback they get from others. This helped fuel a mental health crisis for teenagers." End quote. In this advertising business model, users are the product to be hooked and reeled in. And because of this reality, may I have about 30 more seconds, please? Yes. When students have been struggling with their ability to follow a simple sounding rule in my classroom, no phones during class, I don't see that as a moral failure. When I want to talk to students about the difficulties they face, just doing the thing that they want to do, be successful in class, and seeing them break down crying because they cannot control themselves, I have to sympathize, and I have to blame this powerful and insidious distraction that is deliberately built into the technology that we need in our day-to-day lives, but don't necessarily have to use if we create other systems and use technology intentionally during our school day. Minors should be protected from products that are designed to be addicting. Please pass a policy that bans phones from the beginning of the school day to the end. Thank you.
Thank you. You can come on up.
Is this a reasonable distance from the microphone?
Yeah, I can hear you perfectly. Thank you.
I think I am Ronan Woodford. I live on 61 Steinlock Road. I am a freshman, soon to be sophomore at the wonderful Castro Bay High School. And I would like to, first of all, echo the points of our former speakers who have spoken against this. But I am not here to do that for you. I am here to give options for revising, since I think this bill, or I don't know what's the proper word for it, is horrendously written in some portions that I think need to be fixed. Such as, from my read of it, it's wants to be very strict on IEP and 504 accommodations, which is, I would say, ridiculous. I think those accommodations are what they are in the name. They're accommodations. From what I've heard described by this board and by the bill itself, it seems to only want accommodations for the cell phone policy if you're going to die without your cell phone, which I think is so little of our students who have those 504s and IEPs, and you'll have to solve all of those problems. I know a student with a 504 that allows him to record lessons, or you don't buy him a camera, since by his 504, you either give him his phone or give him a camera. And I think there are a lot of things like that. I think the second thing is a ban of cell phones and extracurricular activities is perhaps, it's just insanity. I cannot tell you how I think there's a simple line in the ground which, if it gives me a credit, I shouldn't have my phone done it. If it's fun, I'm doing for fun, for my own personal enjoyment, I should have my phone. Technically, with this policy, you could say students who go on school trips shouldn't have their phone, and they should just be out in the world for 3 days without their phone. That this policy completely allows. From what I am seeing from it, I think that is ridiculous. I think we can all agree that the ban in extracurriculars is so vague. Some extracurriculars, one for 30 minutes, someone day to day till 10. I've been in some that have trips. I think that is just horrendous in terms of how that is written. It is so openly phrased, and I think with stuff like this we cannot allow open phrasing. That is how you exploit this, and that is how what you guys as a board think you are passing is misused and misquoted to the detriment of our student body. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Every time you have a meeting in here, I have to work and then I have to run fast and drive fast to get here. One of those days, I'm going to get a ticket and I'm going to bring it to you.
Fair enough.
I honestly, this thing's,
Could you just introduce yourself quickly?
See, I told you.
You're moving too fast.
Yeah. My name is Maza Mohammed. I've been in Maine for God knows for a long time. And I really love Maine, and this is my home. And there is a wonderful people surrounded us. And as my daughter loves it, we loved it. The phone things is really annoying me. I was really saddened about what the teacher going through. I respect everybody's opinion. And I hear them, I listened, and I spoke to a number of teachers. To tell you the truth, we are sending our kids to school to learn something. And they need to learn when they go to school. They need to focus when the teacher is teaching them. The teachers is not a babysitters. They are teaching our kids. They need to be respected. A student has a responsibility to respect the teachers. So it goes both ways. When the teacher is teaching the students, they are not listening because they are too busy on the phone. Why do we need to have the phone during the class? That is a part I do not understand. And I don't have the answer for it. And I know my daughter is going to get mad at me for mentioning her name, but I would. So I told her, you are not going to take the phone. It has to stay in the house. And the following day, she said, I think I do have ADHD. Oh, that is new to me. That's fine. We'll go to the doctor's office. And guess what? I'm not going to pay for it. You'll pay for the prescriptions. So I'm not going to pay for that prescription. The next day, she told me, Mommy, I don't think I have ADHD. Why? Because I gave her the phone back. So I saw a number of kids like 2-3 years old. When you take that phone away from them, they are so upset. They are so angry. So I was thinking about it. So I thought about it in a number of things. I said, okay, some kids, they want to have the phone. Why don't we have a name or a little bag and to put their phone in there until the end of the class. When the class is end, they can take the phone. The reason I was thinking about that, because in case anything happened during the school or gunshot, anything happened in the school, they can just go grab the phone and they don't have to worry about it. They can reach the parents.
Would you like about 30 more seconds?
Yes, please. So let's just be, and let's meet somewhere in here in the middle. and let's have the kids, they cannot use the phone during the classroom, period. And we should agree the students, and please hear me out, and don't use it. You get distracted. You're not learning anything. You're not absorbing anything. We can focus on the class. We can do better and improve our grade. The state of Maine, our score is not that the best. Let's improve that instead of digging the phone and playing games during the classroom. So we are sending the kids to learn. Let's teach them. Let them learn. Kids, I understand you are Gen Z, whatever you are, and I respect that. I am old lady, but please learn something, guys. You are the future generation in here. And this is your future goal. You can be whatever you want, but not with a cell phone. Please stop. And thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
I am so sorry if I hurt Gen Zs, and I respect you. And please, thank you so much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the room that would like to give public comment? Yeah, come on up.
Hello. My name is Lucy Bergen. I live at 135 Edwards Street. I am also part of Phone Free Portland Schools. I was not going to speak tonight, but I am speaking because I've spent the last year listening to parents and teachers and students talk about this issue of a cell phone ban. I came in with some preconceived notions to my own feelings about a cell phone ban. And I just want to give sort of like a broad look at what I've heard over the past year. Just some background about me. I am not a teacher. I'm not in the public schools, but I do have a first grader at Rowe and an 8th grader at King, soon to be at Casco Bay next year. So my 8th grader does not have a phone. She does not have a smartphone. And she is one of the only 8th graders I know that does not have a smartphone. She is not pleased about this, you can imagine. I'm talking about my kids right now because I've spent so much time talking to parents to kind of vet their feelings about this. Every single parent of an elementary school kid, and given a lot of the parents I know are have kids that are younger, elementary school, who do not have phones yet. Every single parent I've spoken to is for this ban, 100%, no questions asked, and they look at me like, why wouldn't we do this? I know a lot of parents in middle school, and I've spent quite a lot of time talking to parents of high schoolers because I do feel like this ban is going to affect the high schools most strongly. And this is where parents start to waver. And here's why. They have been used to communicating with their kids on these phones for the last however many years. Parents of elementary school kids are not used to being in touch with their kids all day long. My question is, why do we have to be in touch with our kids all day long? We never used to be. And the cell phone technology has been pushed from cell phone companies for our betterment. I would say no. For our convenience, yes, of course. But what has that done to us in the meantime? More apps, more time on cell phones. Just one more quick thing. I have spoken to so many teachers over the last year, and my heart has just swelled for the amount of pride and love they have for their students. So many teachers want this ban, not just because it's hard for them to teach, but because they care about these kids so much, and they have seen a huge change in their mental health over the last 10 years especially. So my goodness, this is not just about managing classroom time. It is really for the health and safety of these kids. They are going to have their cell phones. Don't worry, everybody. Kids are going to have their cell phones. They're not being taken away completely. They're being taken away out of school time. We have tried over the last many, many years to try and manage cell phones in schools. We've tried so many. The teachers have been so incredibly patient. It's not working. It is not working. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Ray Ruby, 181 Virginia Street. Just want to say thank you to all the board members who are volunteers and staff, Portland Public School staff, students. I know so much has gone into this process, and I couldn't be more proud as a resident in Portland, parent of 2 little kids at Lyseth Elementary School, just how serious this matter has been taken. Between attending workshops, seeing what's virtual options online, it's just been amazing to see how serious this topic is. And from you heard today and other times is that this really strikes a nerve with a lot of folks. And there's been some amazing things I've learned along the way that have changed my mind. But I think one thing we got to think about here is, do we want to be a part of change? Because change is coming. It's coming. It's happening everywhere else, and for good reasons. And I always say, been a long-time resident of Portland, was a former city employee myself. We're usually always first on everything. Sometimes that's pretty scary, and on a number of things. We're not first on this. We're actually a little bit behind. And in some ways that works in our favor. And I know you all have been gathering information from other schools and districts around the state who've already had policies in place. Maybe we'll get to learn a little bit from other folks' mistakes and best practices. But the time is now, and I think it's a great opportunity for us to be a part of that change. And I've heard some comments in the past. Not a lot of it's come up tonight. That just around the safety piece, being able to reach our children in moments of crisis. And I get that. As a former city police officer here in Portland, first responder, you call it SWAT. I was on the SRT, first person through the door during the worst situations possible, trained active shooter. The first thing you would want to do is call your child in the worst situation possible. But they're not there to assist law enforcement. They're not going to help. And though I'm not trained in the last 10 years or so in the newest tactics, what I do know is that my 2 daughters are not going to be able to assist them in the worst moment that could happen to all of us. But I would selfishly want to talk to them. And I get that. And I know that might take that away in a worse situation possible. And I can't give you something to replace that. But there are pros and cons to this. And right now, I think there's way more cons. We heard some of them tonight by allowing these devices in the schools all day long and forcing educators to enforce them all day long. And I hope you support them, just like you support my children every single day when I send them off to school. And I feel really good when I watch them walk through that door. And I think it's only going to get better if you make this policy happen. So thank you all again for everything.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the room that would like to give public comment? So you can speak when the board speaks. Okay, and last call for Zoom. So I'm gonna, I do. Okay, thank you. So we're gonna go ahead and close public comment on this. So now I would open it up to board discussion. And actually I would like to bring forward an amendment to basically replace the working policy that we work off with the amendment that is in board docs that was authored by Sarah Bryden and myself. So I would be looking for a second around that amendment, Board Member Bryden. So with that amendment on the floor, are there any questions? Actually, can we speak to the amendment first? Let's do that. Board Member Bryden, I don't know if you want to start and then I can fill in as well.
Or just to clarify, so you made the motion to switch to this amendment. I seconded it. We're now going to talk about it and we're all going to vote about whether we're going to move forward discussing this document. Yes?
Yes.
Okay, super. I'm happy to speak to it. So I want to echo what some of the public commenters said about the level of community engagement that we've seen. I've been so impressed and heartened to see the emails come in and people, giving public comment at this and the last meeting. It's just been a level of engagement that's just wonderful and respectful, and I'm just so pleased to be part of this community. So I took a lot of the feedback that, some of the recurring themes, and just to give some highlights about how this version of the amendment looks different from what was in the first read. There's a little bit of structure. There's a purpose paragraph. There's definitions of key terms. And a lot of the detail is removed because as a board, we're voting on policy, not rules and implementation. But there are some guiding principles that the policy directs the superintendent, designee, and staff to keep in mind when they are implementing and crafting rules to make this work. So, for example, just the concept of saying that or requiring, and I'm sorry for my voice, so requiring personal electronic devices that are not issued by the school district to be inaccessible from the first bell of the day, starting the day to the end of the day, and leaving it open how that's accomplished in terms of whether there's yonder pouches, whether there's like physical movement into a different part of the building, just being completely agnostic about that. But the purpose being personal electronic devices that are not issued by the school district are not accessible during the day. Clarifying that, so I know the prior version of the policy specifically said that damage to lost, theft, or damage to devices are not the responsibility of the school district. Clarifying that, yes, that remains true, except that if actions taken by staff of the district cause the loss, theft, or destruction of devices, that's a whole other matter. But also, this version requires the district to create mechanisms for reasonable and necessary communication. So whether it specifies that that would be through mechanisms that are available from district issued devices. So making sure that there is a way, not specifying what the way is, but saying there has to be a way for students to get in touch with people that they reasonably need to get in touch with during the day. Making sure that there are applicable discipline procedures that are in place, but not specifying what they are, and making sure that there's a procedure for requesting exceptions, but not getting into the details about what those exceptions can or must be. So that's an overview of how this version is different from the one we saw at the last meeting.
Yeah, thank you, Board Member Bryden. And I would just add a couple of things, just the same themes that came up in the community. So thinking about our multilingual students, our students that are currently using phones for things like calculators or digital cameras, like all of the things that we heard from the community, figuring out how to put it generally in the policy so that when the rules are created and implemented, all of those things would be taken into consideration. Also, just really heard from the community how much our positionality in the state, like people will look to this policy as a model. And so really questioning like what are the things that have to be in this policy versus what are the things that could be taken out. We did remove the search and seizure language that's in it's in a separate policy. We removed, some of the disciplinarian language that was there because it's already captured in other policies. And I think as we move towards a progressive discipline policy, which we're hopefully going to get an update on at the next board meeting, I think it's tonight. Just kidding. It's later tonight. It's all one big meeting. Anyway, so we'll get that tonight. So that will connect. And then also addressing like what happens if a student goes off campus for lunch, what happens if a student comes to paths in the in-between times. So just kind of like all of those things, really trying to create a policy that was broad enough to capture those, that would allow for them, and also just like holding us accountable to making sure that there are mechanisms in place on those key issues that folks have indicated. So with that, I think that I would be looking now for any questions from the board on the amended policy that's in front of us. Yes, Student Representative Fitzgerald.
Does the amended policy talk about other personal devices such as like laptops at all?
It does. It indicates that a personal electronic device, it has a definition at the top of the policy, which is, it gives examples of non-PPS issued devices. So it includes tablets, laptops. I will note that it does not include headphones or earbuds.
I just have a few questions that maybe you can answer. There are some students who take like college classes online and they do a lot of work at school, and I've heard from the students who take those courses, they cannot be accessed on like Chromebooks. Also like applications for internships, internship websites in general, or other websites that we use during like junior planning for college sometimes get blocked off on our Chromebooks. And it's much easier to do it on personal devices. So I was just wondering, brainstorming real quick, what are some?
Yeah, so part of the policy or part of the amendment says that we have to be able to provide those things for things that are related to curriculum and programming within the district. So part of what, in conversations is looking at the list of things that are not accessible right now and modifying those based on what students need.
For the college classes, would you have to work with the colleges to do that?
I think that and Superintendent Scallon, I don't know if you can comment on that. I think it's because we're putting kind of like a firewall up against those websites or the courses. So we would have to just change how Chromebooks could access that or not. But I'll defer to you on that question.
Yeah, to the question of just working with the universities, we would just work with the universities to figure out what sites students need access to that are participating in the course and to make sure that our technology is compatible. It may also be, depending on use or depending on course, that we may issue a different laptop for a student to make sure it meets that use requirement.
Great question. Did I see another hand over there? Student Representative O'Brien, go ahead.
How are we ensuring that these compensations for the difference in no longer having access to the other technology will be implemented or will be accessible before this policy is implemented? Is there going to be a period of time where we have this phone ban and we still don't have the compensation for the access to that technology?
So I think part of what is also happening behind the scenes is the development of the rules and implementation policies. So that is very much a draft right now because building leaders are weighing in on that, teaching staff are weighing in on that, and that will be finalized before. I mean, I think that we've talked about this before, that I think that we can have a really strong start, but we're going to be in a learning curve for the first couple of weeks, right? And that's what we've heard from other schools. We may find things that we didn't know needed to be adjusted, and we'll have to adjust those. So I don't think that anything about this policy is going to be absolute right off the bat, but I think that we can get there. And I don't know, Dr. Warren, if you would add anything to that.
Yeah, just that one of the things that would happen over the coming weeks would be to basically do a survey of all of the schools, the school leaders and the teachers, to find out what technology we would need to fill in. So cameras, calculators, what are the things where there might be gaps? tablets in some cases. So there would be, an in-depth effort to, you have a question? No, if it's related, you can throw it in.
Not really, but like I was just wondering if there is a draft with rules, is there a reason why that's like not being shared publicly? Because I feel like that's like those are what people really want to know, and that would address a lot of the things. And every time people ask a question about it, even I did like a survey, people say that you're kind of just hit with a, oh, we'll figure that out, or don't worry about it, that doesn't matter. And seems irresponsible.
Yeah, and I totally hear that, and I'm happy to address that. I think the pace, because this has moved pretty quickly, like we didn't want to put the draft of the rules out until we had been in conversation, and I'm speaking on behalf of Dr. Warren, been in conversation with building leaders and more people to really flesh them out, to make sure they are what needs to work for each school and each grade band.
Can I add one piece to that? Over the last year, I wouldn't say we have done a lot of policy building that has required rules on top of it, right? And so part of this is a muscle that we're building. But the amendment that's coming forward today is a change from what it was a couple days ago, right? And so the board sets the policy that says this is what we want you to do, and then charges us as staff and to work with the principals and staff and teachers to then figure out how to do it, right? So even the question that you just asked a second ago about working with university partners around courses, that's a new piece that I believe is not insurmountable, but is a new piece. So it wouldn't necessarily be captured in the rules. And then with any rules, we're also working with our external legal counsel to make sure that it is legally allowable. And so that's an iterative process. And so we don't want to put off a false sense that there is a full, here's exactly how this piece would be implemented if we also haven't engaged with school leaders on it. And that's been a process that's been ongoing. I don't know what the state of the rules are in terms of sharing that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we are hoping to share them as soon as possible. It's possible that they could be in a draft, a good enough working draft by the next board meeting that we would get to see them then. And again, remember that the board does not vote on that policy, so we don't, we can't amend it or anything like that. We can give input or say, you need to do this or work on this differently. So I think potentially at the earliest, it could be at the next board meeting. And if not, it would be in the first meeting in August. I saw a hand down here with board member Lena. Go ahead.
You answered my question. It was just clarifying that the board does not vote on the rules.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yeah. Board member Ali.
I have a question about the implementation part. If we go to B, I'm kind of concerned about the language, and it opens, I don't know, to me, it sounds stressful for whoever is handling these devices. What was the thought behind specifically the part that says loss or theft that is intentionally caused by the actions of Portland Public Schools staff? That, and then my second thing is F, and the exceptions. I think someone mentioned not having so much exceptions that it kind of contradicts what we're trying to do. So I would also advise the board or whoever is drafting the rules to be, I don't know, a little careful with what exceptions are, and that should not cause extra issues between who has the exceptions and who cannot. But going back to B, I just wanted to discuss that further.
Yeah, board member Biden, would you like to respond to that?
Certainly. So subparagraph B, the part about Portland Public Schools is not responsible for the damage, loss, or theft of electronic devices that students choose to bring to school, with the exception of any damage, loss, or theft that is intentionally caused by the actions of Portland Public School staff, really came from a lot of the community feedback of if a ban means that your device is like in a phone hotel or in another part of the building and something happens to it, the previous iteration said it's not our fault. And to me, that made a lot of sense that there was pushback around that. Like if you're taking my phone and then it gets lost or stolen, and what happens then? To just sort of add that clause that basically says, well, yes, but if it's if the bad outcome is caused by staff, then it is our responsibility as a district.
Thank you. Board Member Opperman.
I think the problem with the word is intentional. That says, that has a, and my question was going to be, has this draft been passed through a lawyer other than Ms. Brighton?
I'm not the district's lawyer.
I know you're not.
Get
I'm
that
not.
on the record. Yes, Dr. Warren, this has been.
This version has not gone through the lawyer yet.
Okay.
Yeah. It's just.
Because the term intentional, I think, is an assumption of reason for. I mean, if you put something and it falls off the wall, that's accidental. But the way you said it, but I don't think you meant it that way, but the way I was hearing it, it could be, well, you made me put it in there for it's intentionally there for, therefore you intentionally are, so I mean, that's a bad word.
So I have two things. So first, I have a question about whether we're at the part of the fun process where we can make friendly amendments to what's here on the page. Also, Vice Chair Bondo has her hand up.
Thank you. Let's do Vice Chair Bondo first. I think we need to accept this amendment and then make amendments to the amendment, which is our favorite part of the process. So Vice Chair Bondo, go ahead. And I apologize, I didn't see your hand.
Thank you, Bob Braden. Thank you for seeing me. So I have two questions, clarification, and one I think aligning with board Ali around exceptions. So I try to get more details on the exceptions because I feel like it's a wide open because of different interpretation about exceptions. So who we have to accept exception, and if it's not open up a lot of doors to create more exceptions, which can be really under control from the district. So this is my first question. And the second one is on different device details. So why not the earbuds? Because there's a lot of equity issues right there. Because the earbuds is mostly the Bluetooth connected with the phone. So whatever we put it back. So I try to understand why we have removed the earbuds on those details, on those amended policy on the table right now, on the floor.
On the earbuds and the headphones piece, I would also say that the definition of personal electronic devices lists some examples, but it is not an exhaustive list. So I think it would be completely appropriate for staff to implement rules that include earbuds and headphones if they are proving to be a distraction or otherwise within the purview of this policy.
All right. So
if I could just add, I think I just heard from so many educators that are using headphones in their classrooms to connect to some part of their curriculum or an assignment. And the idea of purchasing a lot of headphones and managing headphones, which are just like a tangly device, I think that if there was permission given within a class to use the headphones, that is why I agreed to the language that's there. And then I might ask Dr. Warren if you could talk about kind of like how you're thinking about exceptions and within the rules policy. Also, though, just know it's still a work in progress. But go ahead.
So the language in the rules would be consistent with the original intent and what we were given here in this latest proposed amendment, that it would be limited. It would have to be approved through a process where there's a common standard form submitted to the principal, signed by a parent, and the types of things that would be considered would be significant health-related issues that are documented, most likely in a 504 or an IEP. It gives examples like we have given here, previously, things like an insulin pump that's connected to a phone, hearing aids connected to a phone. There is some room in there for some discretion around exceptional circumstances that gives an administrator a little bit of room to gauge something. But there's also sort of intent built in to be monitoring this whole process, to be looking at data, to be sharing across administrators consistently around how the process is working, which would also be looking at exceptions and how those are coming in and how they're being moved. I will say in all of this engagement that we've been doing, one of the things that happened was that several of us went to Morse High School in Bath to see how they were doing it. And they had very significantly limited exceptions in their process as well. Out of, I think they said 634 students or something like that, they had 3 exceptions, 2 related to insulin pumps and 1 related to a student with hearing aids. And then 1 that was a temporary exception for a student who'd broken, I think, multiple bones and just needed a way to kind of communicate and be accessible to people while moving around. So very limited, it's possible to do. And that's sort of the direction that we headed in.
Oh, thank you. So I just have to get my thought together. So I mean, the way we moving maybe forward with the mandate on the floor right now, so is a little more broader direction to the district to build some of the ruling process, because I feel like if the ruling process can be becoming a living document, then can be used by the district to be more flexible and to the change and make some adjustment. That's what I just want to understand, because I feel like this amended here, it just give us the bringing more assumptions, more is not well to define, and by not to be too rigid about what we really want to achieve, but just be more broader and leave everything to the ruling process.
Did you, Board Member Bryden, do you want to?
Well, I actually had a question about, Vice Chair Bondo was talking about the motion that's on the table. Is it on the table yet?
Oh, we're just asking questions.
Yeah, we need to vote on the amendment. So we cannot amend the amendment yet because we have not voted on it yet.
And have a friendly?
No, we're not friendly amending the amending.
Okay,
We are
all right.
voting on the amendment and then we can amend it.
Not voting to accept the amendment, but voting to move to this version as discussion.
Yes. Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So that's why I just want to get those clarifications on my thoughts and to see if I can go in favor to move the amendment that we are discussing right now. Yeah.
Can you say that one more time, Mickey?
So that means all the questions that I'm asking right now, just to get a lot of thoughts on some other clarification in my mind, to make sure if I'm going to the favor of accepting the new version of the policy then we just want to amend it right now.
Yes. So I'm hearing from you, Vice Chair Bondo, that you are looking to get this one on the table so that we can amend it. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes. But that's why I need to get more clarification. That's why I'm asking a little more details. Are we moving, giving to the guidance space on the new version?
Yeah.
So the district can have more flexibility, like a living document, to try to go to the process to adjusting some of those issues, the way they will come around exceptions and some other personal device, without having those details on that version.
Yes. And so I think that, I do think the intention behind this amended policy was to make it more broad so that all of those details could be in the rules document that is, and could be, that is a working document. All of our rules documents are working documents. But yes, I think, let me see if there's any other board questions on this amendment, and then we will move to potentially a vote. Yes,
All right, thank you.
Student Representative O'Brien, go ahead.
I kind of have two questions. One is why no personal laptops? And the other is how are the concerns about personal safety, like brought up during public comment, being addressed within this amendment, I guess?
Yeah, so I think on your, you said personal safety and then personal laptops. So personal laptops aren't kind of managed by our IT and technology systems and staff. So it means that it's actually a vulnerability for the district to have them on our network and accessing kind of things within our network and technology framework. I think over the past year, that is an area within the district that we've started to really dig into and understand where the things around our IT systems that need to be tightened up. And I think that that is one of them. Again, I just acknowledge that there will be a learning curve with that, right? Because as you spoke about, people are using personal laptops as a workaround right now to get the things that they need. So we need to make sure that our systems that we have within the district are giving students what they need. And it will just be identifying those. I don't know, Superintendent, if there's anything else you would say on that. And then the personal safety pieces, do you mean in terms of an emergency or as in mental health emergencies like that?
Like mental health and then also communication with family members and et cetera.
Yeah, so I think that, and I apologize for not bringing this up before, but I think that we heard very loud and clear from numerous people in the community about needing to have more consistent communication from all of our schools and consistently being able to call a school and get through to a school and get a message through. So I do think that there are some provisions in this amendment that say that has to be in place and that also there has to be a way for a student on a PBS provided device, whether that's a landline, whether that is some other piece of technology that students could use during the day to get a hold of a family member outside, and making sure that there's a private space for students to be able to use whatever that technology is in for sensitive or confidential calls. Student Representative Fitzgerald.
It's sort of a follow-up to the last question, but when it comes to the personnel that would, I guess, be dealing with, because the main office at Portland right now is pretty overwhelmed. And even yesterday at the stakeholder meeting, it was brought up that our main office would need more attention. And if we're already cutting 2 teachers from roles at Portland, or cutting them from cutting them, and these pouches would take up the cost or the salary of a few teachers actually. Where would this come from? Where would this additional support come from? And I would like a somewhat specific answer, or not too general, so I can feel somewhat confident in this.
Yeah. Superintendent, do you want to respond or you want me to?
I'm happy to answer on both the 2 teacher piece as well as the cell phone and supportive environment. So first on the 2 teacher piece, the reduction at Portland High School on 2 staff was based on the fact.
Okay. Yeah.
It went out. Thank goodness.
Bravo, bravo, bravo.
So the reduction of 2 teaching staff at Portland High School is something we review every year. Right now, Portland High School is projected to have at least 100 fewer students next year. And so actually a reduction of 2 teachers is lower than actual class size there. And so it's done so that we can balance out where staff is needed and where there is growth, and also looking at elementary schools, et cetera. And so that happens every year. It's not based on an individual budget piece. We do have every year both unanticipated revenues as well as unanticipated expenses that happen, right? So the polls just closed 4 minutes ago and they voted on a budget, and we already know that there's changes in terms of title funds that we'll receive from the federal government. And so we go through a budget process that adjusts. Yonder pouches will not cost, if that's the decided upon, will not cost $200,000 for implementation. And so part of this is that the scale isn't quite that high. In terms of the second question around safe environment, Chair Lentz and I had the opportunity to meet with Portland Outright, was it last week? And it was a really helpful conversation to think about their concerns. And it was, I think, captured in here and how we're thinking about the rules, which is we want to make sure that everybody, has strong relationships at the school level. And that means increasing the amount of contact that exists between students and our counselors and social workers. And so one of the proposals is actually that the contact, if somebody needs to connect with an outside counselor, et cetera, will be through the counseling office. Sorry. So that's one of the ideas that is proposed there. Our schools have, at the high school level, 5 guidance counselors and 4 social workers, which is higher than the National Association of Guidance Counselors actually is their guidance. And so we believe that there's taps the ability to leverage that to also build on relationships for a safe environment to make those contacts.
Thank you. That did answer my question. And yes, but I do have another question, just like from the budget piece, like looking at the fact that there's like new information that comes in after the fact and that we can probably like allocate some of that money towards this policy. A lot of students wonder why we can't, and I know it's like a very exhausted point, I guess, but why we can't reinstate the $1,000 that we lost for textbooks, or why we can't buy new calculators, and why we can't upgrade the school a little bit to smoothen out the rollout of this before we implement it, instead of not wasting this money, but instead of not knowing if it will be properly used in the like long term.
Yeah, no, and Student Representative Fitzgerald, I think that all of those are really valid questions, and I think that that is the board has been wrestling with that. I think I can speak personally how I've kind of played tennis with myself about that because I recognize how tight things are fiscally, and that until we're able to make some change at the state level, that our revenue is pretty. It's not going up, right? And I also kind of the way that I have thought about this is I think that there's very few policies as a board that you can implement that see the kinds of gains that other districts and schools are seeing from a policy such as this. So, and I 100% want as many adults in our buildings as we can get and afford. And I think that there is a place for policy that goes across the district that can get us outcomes in a different way. And so I think for me, that's where I'm coming from with this amended policy, is that I want this, across the district for the district level outcomes that I think we'll see.
Just like very quickly. Thank you again. But like, I was also just wondering, you mentioned the like success of other kind. Okay, so, the success of, I'm sorry, I need a second. The success of other schools.
It's okay. Do you want to go to Student Representative O'Brien and come back?
Just very quick. Yeah, no. I guess students are confused as to why this like would not necessarily like take precedence over those things, but why the other things aren't being handled either with the same like speed and readiness. And they also don't feel that this policy is a great use of this money, despite all the conversations and outreach that this board has made in the last like month or so. A lot of students learned about it in the last few months at high schools, and then don't feel like the board has come in with an open mind. And so even though I guess you can say that there's been sufficient outreach, people still don't fully understand the personal benefits of this. And I feel like unless you address that, there will still be pushback. And that would require longer conversations, more and more like open minds and just ability to change. Because yeah, like I see what you're saying and going to a lot of like stakeholder meetings, I do see what teachers and parents are saying and I sympathize heavily, but I also have to sympathize with students because I am one and I do see the fact that this is punitive. And I actually like two words that I heard during public comment, punitive and like hysteria almost, or like a hysteria over this. Like it reminded me of, actually, wait, never mind. Yeah.
Thank you for all of those thoughts. Student Representative O'Brien, did you have a question?
I know you've sort of answered part of this already, and I know that not all of the concerns are necessarily identified, but can it be guaranteed that those compensations will be in place before we implement this policy? I understand no matter what, it's going to be a rocky transition, but if we have concerns that we have identified, are there going to be competent solutions for those problems before we just jump into this, the ones that we do know about?
Yes, that is the plan. I'm going to see if there's any other, and then I would like to get this amended version on the table, and then we can continue discussion and thoughts. Yeah, Board Member Opperman.
Thank you. On section F, and under implementation, I appreciate the intent of the policy to be broad enough, and that should be things to be tightened up in any kind of rules, and the rules could be flexible. But if I were a parent, and I have been a parent, I am still a parent, I'm reading this and says, if in the event a student's family believes, a student or a student's family believes that access to a personal electronic device is needed, I guess the need, discernment of need, who makes that discernment of the need? Is it the parent discerning the need? Is it the student discerning the need? Is it the rules? Are the rules going to outline what those needs are? Because as it is here, it just says, okay, I could have every kid in Portland High School say, I need this, and put it in and have a list of reasonable reasons why I need this to them, and feel that it's not. So I guess I have issues with that paragraph.
Great. Could we get this paragraph on the table and then we can talk about how you would like to amend it or not? Would that sound all right? All right?
Okay.
Okay, so we have a first and a second on this policy. So now we're going to take a roll call. And the vote is to move this amendment to being the working draft of the policy that then the board can, later in this meeting, vote on to accept or not, but will become the amended policy that we are then amending. And I apologize for all the times I'm saying the word amending. Dr. Warren, can you please call the roll?
Member Ali, Member Yusra Ali,
Yes.
Vice Chair Bondo,
Yes.
Member Bryden,
Yes.
Member Lena,
Yes.
Member Noor, Member Opperman, Member Opperman,
I'm going to say no because I'm afraid it won't be amended again. I need it.
Yes or no?
Student Representative Fitzgerald,
No.
Student Representative Kantiba,
Yes.
Student Representative Lee,
Yes.
Student Representative O'Brien,
No.
Student Representative Ziegler,
Yes.
Chair Lentz.
Yes, so that motion passes the amendment with a vote 5-1 with from board members and 3-2 for student representatives. So now we have an amended policy on the floor. Would anyone, so now we will take questions on this policy that is on the floor, and we'll go through the process again. So what questions do board members have?
Oh, just questions, not like a suggestion?
Yes, so we go through questions.
Yes, okay.
Yeah. Board Member Lena.
I have a question under the definition section under personal electronic device. Earlier in the discussion, Chair Lindsay, you mentioned that a personal electronic device would mean a device that's not issued by the school, but the amendment doesn't state anything about the school department issuing devices. So that might be helpful to have something that says personal electronic device means a device that is not issued by the school in some form.
Board Member Bryden.
So we certainly could make that change. I think the intent was that within the policy statement, it says personal electronic devices that are not issued by Portland Public Schools shall not be available or accessible to students for the duration of the school day. So,
I see that. Yep.
So then when you're like, okay, well, what's a personal electronic device?
Yeah. That's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome.
Any other questions from the board?
I just want to acknowledge that Board Member Opperman had a question leading into the vote to get the amendment on the table, and I'm wondering if we should address that.
Yes. Board Member Opperman, could you repeat what your question was, please?
Well, there were two places, and it has to do with the wording and intent of the wording and a read of the wording. And I'm trying to find what the first one was. I'll go to F. That was the one I most recently spoke on. And that is, the first sentence would stand as is, okay, if there were some statement in that an exception is exceptional. It is just too, it's an easy, we're worried about go-arounds with saying things like, having every doctor in Portland go for 504 for anybody who, has whatever reason. I think people need to have access to the phone, whether they need to go to a room to have access to a phone. I'm not saying that I don't think they need access to the phone. They might need to be able to use a phone, but if that, having the access completely open in the sentence, there's no definition of what the access means or the reason, what kind of exception. It should be broad, but it's too broad, and it bothers me because after all the work and thinking and I have been, even though I've been open about this because I have concerns for kids who need to reach somebody outside for mental health. I also want them to be able to access mental health within the building and develop relationships. I'm concerned about those relationship pieces. So I'm not saying that they shouldn't have access, but I think that particular phrasing, it's bothersome because it essentially dilutes it, because it doesn't put enough point to the rules. I mean, the rules can get real specific, but this is so broad that it doesn't even say what the rules should say. And I also think it would become inequitable because if, hey, this parent comes and complains louder than this other parent, there's just lots of reasons in there that bothers me, and I don't know what to say about it other than that.
Okay, so I hear the concern that you are naming here. I think when we get through amendments, we can consider maybe some language shifts there. Board Member Bryden and then Board Member Ali.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to just quickly respond with sort of a blanket statement that I think this is a really good example, at least for me, of the tension that I'm feeling between how high level should a policy document be versus how much should be in the rules document, and feeling like there are a number of areas in this amendment where I think that tension is just present. I would consider in F a little bit more detail in terms of, for example, exceptions needing to be approved by a building administrator or something like that, but also retaining the space for the superintendent and the rest of district leadership to craft rules that have more of the detail in them. Thank you.
Board Member Ali?
I think paragraph F is also what I was very uncomfortable with and how broad it is. So I would be in favor of amending the language to say something along the lines of exceptions refer to the rules, and not state it here, because to me, I feel like this already answers this. If anyone needs, and everyone needs, as we see students not in favor. Anywho, so that's my point to that. But my main thing that I want to discuss is paragraph B again. I am still very uncomfortable with the intentionally word, and I would like that to be removed and not put unnecessary burden on staff who are handling the phones. And so I don't know, because in my mind, I'm thinking about, well, who's to determine who did the harm to the phone or to the device? So are we going to go and investigate this now? And that's going to take time, and who's paying for this? So I would propose an amendment to take that intentional part out and leave these detailed things to the rules.
And I think that we've organically moved to amendments, which I think is the right thing to do. 1 second, Student Representative Lee. So I think, let me take Student Representative Lee's comment, and then we'll come back and work on that amendment. And then Board Member Opperman, if you can think about potential language change for what you're working on. Yeah, Student Representative Lee, go ahead.
All right, thank you. I'll keep this brief, and I feel like the discussion is moving very quickly, but I just wanted to put in my 2 cents on the debate surrounding subclause F, because I personally think, as written, it's actually one of the stronger parts of the amended policy. And I just think we should implement education, like, if we have to implement this policy, like as part of the broader rollout, you would just want to include education to the student populace about what exceptions constitute and what things warrant exceptions. And so I think, it won't be too broad if we just make sure that people are aware that you can't ask for an exception for just anything, and we aren't accepting exceptions for just anything. Eventually people will learn, it doesn't work. And then, I just around B, I think we should be holding people responsible for both intentional and unintentional damage. And I'm not entirely sure if that's at odds with what Representative Ali was saying or not, but thank you.
Thank you, Representative Lee. Okay, so let's go. We're going to go back to Part B. We're going to go to B first.
B first, that's fine. I would and I don't know which
Board Member Opperman, can you use your microphone so people at home
I don't know
can hear
which
you?
point we amend the amendment, but this is what I would say is stop with what the student chooses to bring to school, period. And just as it was in the original one, because I just think it's causing creating a causality situation that I don't think is fair. You did that on purpose kind of thing. And then it's exactly, you've been in school more recently as a student. I've been in school more recently as a teacher. There are issues that sometimes it will create and all. So that's my point on that one. That would be my amendment to that.
So I'm hearing that your amendment would stop after Portland Public Schools is not responsible for damage, loss, or theft of electronic devices that students choose to bring to school, period.
Correct. Because the other parts say that if they don't have to bring their things to school because we're going to provide whatever they need in this. So if you're worried that it's going to get damaged, leave it at home. You think you need something because you need something, we'll provide it.
Okay, so that I'm hearing that is your motion to make that amendment. Is there a second on that amendment? Board Member Ali seconded. So I would like to now take a vote on that amendment.
You want to do questions on it?
Yes, we can do questions. Yeah.
No,
No, I know you were not asking for that, but yes, you are correct procedurally. If there's any discussion on that amendment. Oh, thank you. Student Representative O'Brien, go ahead.
It feels logical that in taking possession of an item, you then take responsibility for what happens to it. And students will need their phones before and after school. And you shouldn't be penalized or wary of what could happen leaving your phone in the care of the school. It feels like it could promote carelessness or something, and then also just be not safe for students. I understand wanting to protect teachers and faculty, and obviously that makes sense, but in the same vein, if you're taking someone's property, it's your responsibility to keep it safe. I don't know.
I guess the argument,
Board Member Aberman, go ahead.
the discussion point is the taking of it, and at the high school level, if it, as we have been discussing, the potential rules is that the student would never be without at least the cell phone or any small device, that piece.
Would likely be using pouches at the high school.
They would be using pouches at high school. In the elementary school, yes, I mean, I understand what you're saying is, and all, but go ahead.
In the case where it says that they may be confiscated if it becomes an issue, if it's snuck or something like that, obviously it makes sense that it would be confiscated in that case. But in that case, would the person or the district now be responsible of what they are confiscating?
That's perhaps that phrase then belongs in a different place, that if confiscated, they're responsible for it. I mean, it just, go ahead.
But it says, oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, you're in charge.
Thank you. Thank you. Student Representative Fitzgerald, and then we'll come back to Board Member Ali.
Much like Representative O'Brien, I agree that I understand why you would want to protect teachers and faculty against false accusations. But if we're going to be going with the yonder pouch theme, then it would take a lot of intentional effort for a faculty member, or not intentional, but it would take some effort for a faculty member or a teacher to get their hands on this phone. So I feel that leaving that in is actually I think that the word intentional just kind of makes the policy safer and more well-rounded, because it's not like teachers are going to be having these phones in their on them, or it's going to be in their care. So if something did happen to our phones at the hands of a faculty or teacher, it would probably be because somebody was doing something that was outside of the policy of just keeping the phone in the pouch. So I think that it would be there's a very small chance for that to happen, these false accusations, and it does protect students and potentially their phones.
Thank you. Board Member Ali, and then Lena.
So when this policy came to us first, my biggest concern was not to villainize teachers. And keeping this in there, and with the start of intentionality, that's what's happening. So what I'm coming from is to not create more divide between teachers and students and false accusations or whatnot. That's why I am just suggesting that we keep best intentions, that your students' properties will be protected, and teachers are not falsely accused of anything that can happen. Because the policy says do not bring your phones, but if you do choose to and anything happens, that's not the teacher's fault.
And can I just ask you a follow-up question, Board Member Ali? So I think I hear you saying that it's literally the word intentionally that you're having a hard time with, because it's implying that there are staff that would intentionally cause damage to a phone.
Yes, but then also this whole thing of, yes. Yep.
Okay. Board Member Lena, go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to ask a question clarifying a point that was earlier brought up by Board Member Opperman, that this document has not been reviewed by the school department's lawyer. Theoretically, if this passes and the lawyer reviews it and says this is problematic, what happens at that point?
We'd have to bring it back to the board and amend it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Board Member Bryden.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to, I would like us, I mean, I can't control what other people do in this conversation, but I would like us to remain agnostic in terms of how this gets implemented and not assume that we're going to do yonder pouches or phone hotels and make sure that the policy is appropriate for whatever eventuality happens in different grade bands and all that. And then the other point that I wanted to make was, I don't know if this is friendly amendment territory or not, but as this snippet of the conversation unfolds, I'm feeling like I would be more supportive of a B that takes out the word intentionally, but keeps the rest of that clause, because, as the student representatives are pointing out, there will be certainly times when you do need to have a device that goes to school with you and then leaves at the end of the day. And if it gets confiscated or it's in a phone hotel and some staff member accidentally pours water on it or whatever, just acknowledging the fact that if you have a device that must be in the building for reasons that you don't need to explain, and something happens to it because the district somehow caused that to happen, that shouldn't be on you as a student. So again, I don't know how to procedurally deal with that, but wanted to voice that.
Could I ask a question of district leadership here around other things that are brought to school by students? Backpacks, coats, shoes, anything that a student brings to school that is potentially damaged by an adult for whatever reason. How is that navigated?
I don't know if you're asking a follow-up on that.
Do you have a follow-up question on that?
I feel like in those instances, when these items would remain in the student's care, it's now that it would be in the case when these items are taken out of the student's care because they can't have them in the classroom. That's the issue. And so with a backpack, that is still the student's responsibility. It's not being taken by the district or.
Yes, I hear that. And I still think I would like the answer to the question about what happens to student things that are damaged at school.
I mean, there's very few examples of where we have damage that happens. We have, I think, some language around eyeglasses and that side of piece, where we support the family in terms of getting that replaced on this. And I think it's a board choice on how they want to do this. I think there is a potential slippery slope that comes with this in terms of assuming responsibility for what is brought into the building, whether a locker and a locker being provided by the school, and so there being some assumed security there, and somebody gets into the locker. So I would worry about the slippery slope on that, but I think that is a board preference and one that we can manage either way.
Okay, so I think I'm going to go ahead and call for a vote on the amendment that is on the table at this moment and just see where we are, and we can move from there. So the amendment that is on the table is to change bullet B in section 1, 2, 3, 4 to Portland Public Schools is not responsible for the damage, loss, or theft of electronic devices that students choose to bring to school, period. So that is the amendment that we will be voting on. Dr. Warren, will you please call the roll?
Member Ali. Member Yusra Ali.
Yes.
Vice Chair Bondo.
Yes.
Member Bryden.
Yes.
Member Lena.
No.
Member Noor. Member Opperman.
Yes.
Student Representative Fitzgerald.
I'm sorry, could I just ask a question? Is it removing just the word intentionally, or is it removing that entire section?
It's removing the entire section after the word schools, I believe.
Okay, then no.
School.
Then no.
The word schools in there twice, so just to be really
Thank you.
concrete, it would read, Portland Public Schools is not responsible for the damage, loss, or theft of electronic devices that students choose to bring to school.
Period.
Yeah, I'm against that.
Student Representative Kantiba.
Yes.
Student Representative Lee.
No.
Student Representative O'Brien.
No.
Student Representative Ziegler.
No.
Chair Lentz.
Yes. So that amendment passes with a vote 5-1 board members and 1-4 with student representatives. Are there any other amendments that would like to be brought up? Board Member Lena? Other amendments potentially? I know someone said about bullet F.
Yes. And I've been trying to figure, I'm not
Could I
wordsmith.
just speak to something? So I've been trying to think about like other case scenarios that we do a similar thing about this in the district. So I'm thinking about like student transfers between schools. I'm thinking about sensitive material in a classroom that a family indicates that they have a need, but then they go through a process that then is decided on by district.
Right.
To me, that's what I see in this language, is that the process itself will decide from our perspective and our rules if it is indeed a need that needs to be accommodated. So if you want to keep thinking about language, we can go to other board members. Board Member Lena?
I'm wondering if we can go back to the prior way this was written. And I apologize if this is not accurate, but something along the lines of exceptions to this no cell phone policy will be very limited and only allowed when a student receives prior written authorization from a building administrator in accordance with the superintendent's rules, et cetera.
That's good.
I mean, it's more specific and it doesn't, open up the door to anyone and everyone trying to find an exception. It's stating we will make them in the event that it is absolutely necessary, which I think was the intention.
So it sounds like you are making a motion to replace bullet F with the language that you just read. Could you read that language one more time, please?
Sure. Exceptions to this no cell phone policy will be very limited and only allowed when a student receives prior written authorization from a building administrator in accordance with the superintendent's rules. In the event that student is authorized to have an electronic device with them at school, the device may not be used in any manner that disrupts the educational process, as illegal or violates board policies and/or school rules.
Can I clarify? Recognizing that you're pulling the language from the previous draft policy, are you also including the parenthetical?
No.
So you are pulling bullet 3 from the previous draft.
Yes, without the parentheses piece.
Would it be helpful if I put it on the screen?
Yes, it would.
Give me 1 second.
Yeah, I like that.
Thank you. So here it is. It's replacing bullet F with bullet 3. Is there a second? No.
A second.
Thank you, Board Member Vice Chair Bondo.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, questions. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. So would you be amenable to having that say exceptions to this policy versus exceptions to this no cell phone policy?
Yes, that looks good.
Did you catch that?
Mhm.
Could you make that change?
Yeah, I didn't know if that was actually agreed upon.
Agreed.
Appreciate the moment of levity. Any other questions about this amendment?
It's not on the floor yet. Do we have a second?
We did, Vice Chair Bondo.
Great, thank you.
Okay, then let's go ahead and take a vote on this, please. Dr. Warren?
Member Ali. Member Yusra Ali.
Yes.
Vice Chair Bondo.
Yes.
Member Bryden.
Yes.
Member Lena.
Yes.
Member Noor. Member Opperman.
Yes.
Student Representative Fitzgerald.
Yes.
Student Representative Kantiba.
Yes.
Student Representative Lee.
Yes.
Student Representative O'Brien.
Yes.
Student Representative Ziegler.
Yes.
Chair Lentz.
Yes, so that amendment passes unanimously with the student representatives voting with the board. Are there any other amendments? Board Member Bryden, go ahead.
I would make a motion to, within 4A, the parenthetical at the end of that paragraph, this does not include field trips, but is inclusive of off-campus lunch, appointments, special programs, or travel between schools. I would move to take that out because I feel like it is getting into the weeds and is more appropriate within rules.
Is there a second?
Where is this again, please? What?
Yeah.
Implementation of policies, the paragraph A at the end, the parenthetical.
Can you say that into your microphone so other people can?
Sure. It's implementation of policy, paragraph A at the end of that paragraph, the parenthetical.
Student Representative Lee.
Just really quickly, I feel like it may be getting into the weeds, but also those are like some of the main points that we've received a lot of confusion and questions about throughout the process. And so I think just specifying that would make sense.
Thank you, Student Representative Lee. So I do have a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Board Member Lena? Is there any other discussion about this? I would say what Student Representative Lee mentioned, I think is the intention behind that parenthetical. I do think it sets an indication that students who leave campus can have access to their phone for whatever reason they're leaving, which feels like an important indication based on feedback from the community. So I think I would not vote for this amendment, but those are my thoughts. Yeah. Board Member Bryden.
My perspective is that I think it's really important for the district staff, administrators to be able to craft rules that balance a number of factors, including the efficacy of this policy. And I have concerns about allowing phones to be returned to students to leave campus for lunch. I'm thinking about the number of community members who have spoken to the opportunity to have a phone-free school and allow students to, have lunch together and build social skills. Some of the feedback that I heard from those who were able to go to Morse High School, I have concerns about, oh, well, it's lunch. Give me my phone back. I'm going to leave, use my phone, and then come back to school. I don't know how much that will or will not happen, but I think that that's why I would rather see this within rule.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Board Member Bryden. Student Representative Fitzgerald.
Okay, so I do understand the concerns around, okay, so I was on that trip to Morris and I did hear the positive social interaction aspects of it, but this leads into another question I had about what the specific intention of the policy is. Is it to improve students' mental health and social character and life in general, or is it to stop people from using their phones during instructional time? Because those are very two different things. And if we cut out this part of the, I also have concerns about the on-campus, off-campus lunch situation, but just in regards to time, because we have 1,000 students at least at Portland going in and out of the campus, going in and out of the school at the same time. Another issue is that a lot of students use Apple Pay or whatever, which is primarily the reason they would want their phones. And I do have to say that I'd say this with a lot of respect for everybody, every adult who talks about the phone policy, but using this generalizing language that can seem kind of insensitive towards how students use their phones can create more division and polarization. Just saying that students are going to want or itching for their phones will not make students more compliant with this policy. Thank you.
Thank you. Student Representative O'Brien and then Board Member Upperman.
I think it's again a situation of that safety piece. So many students, most students leaving campus for lunch need to be able to have communication with, trusted adults for their safety. And then also just 100 reasons like what Mina mentioned. And I don't typically find that if a student's with others for lunch, they're going to sit on their phone. I think students, especially in the high school level, are more pragmatic with their cell phone use than are given credit for. We're not zombies sitting on our phones all day, as much as it may seem like that.
Thank you, Student Representative O'Brien. Board Member Opperman?
I have two comments related to those comments. One, I think if you're going to have an open campus, once a student steps outside the building, I think they need their phone for safety, particularly, if you go 10 feet outside Portland High School, it's not always a pleasant environment. So if they're going to choose to go there to get lunch or whatever. So that clarity, although I don't think they should have it in lunch inside, because that just gets messy. The other, I guess that's my primary concern. I think the other piece is, I'm not sure if this is where that belongs as far as, should it be in the rules? Or is this, I guess that's the question with the parentheses. I mean, if it says making accessible as students leave school, it does say special programs, that would be, it would be inclusive of all those things. I understand why you want it there to make sure that's not ignored, but I think if you are walking out of the building, I think that is sufficient reason to have your phone back. And it doesn't have to be any particular reason whatsoever. But I understand what you're concerned about, people maybe not being as clear about that and understanding.
Thank you, Board Member Opperman. Board Member Lena?
Can I offer an amendment to the amendment?
Yes.
Which would be, okay, so going to the part where it says, and for making them accessible as students leave campus, parentheses, not including field trips, close parentheses, period. Because I think the purpose is to highlight that field trips are still part of school. But if you are indicating in the policy that they can have them back when they leave campus, then you don't need to give examples.
So I don't support that amendment to my amendment, but you can make that amendment after. Okay. And I say that because I think that it's still really in the weeds, and like the field trip piece can be accomplished in rule. So.
The only other thing that I would just say, I think we've heard a ton about off-campus lunch. And, I think that there are some real inequities that are built into off-campus lunch, being able to buy your lunch outside of school. And so I recognize that making phones available during lunch when only some people can buy their lunch every day out of school, there's an equity baked into that as well. So I just want to name both of those things, but I don't think that the board is in a position to take that opportunity away, nor do they want to right now. And I think for me, we can say in this policy that we can say that there has to be a phone and a landline for kids to be able to use inside the building, but we can't mandate that outside the building or the campus. And so for me, when a student crosses that line of campus, there needs to be something else that is available to them. And I can't say to the city, I need you to put a payphone in front of all of our high schools, right? That uses Apple Pay, but then you wouldn't have your phone. Anyway, so to me, that does feel like an important line that we need to address. And I know that this is not the amendment on the table, but I think I could entertain what you said as well. Are there any other questions on the amendment that is on the table, which is removing the parenthetical in point A? Because I think we could just call for a vote and see where we are on that. Just double check Zoom here for Vice Chair Bondo.
That is as is written up there. A4.
Correct. Correct. So that is the amendment that is on the floor right now. So your vote yes would be indicating that you would like to remove that parenthetical from point A in the policy. Dr. Warren, can you call the roll, please?
Member Ali, Member Yusra Ali,
No.
Vice Chair Bondo,
Yes.
Member Bryden,
Yes.
Member Lena,
Yes.
Member Noor, Member Opperman,
Yes.
Student Representative Fitzgerald,
No.
Student Representative Kantiba, Student Representative Kantiba, Student Representative Lee,
No.
Student Representative O'Brien,
No.
Student Representative Ziegler,
No.
Chair Lentz.
No. So the motion does not pass. The vote is 4-2 from board. Students all voting negative.
Not passed?
If it's 4-2, it passes.
It passed.
You need a majority of the board.
4-2?
Like a majority of the board.
Okay, 5.
Which is 8. There's
Oh, I
8
thought we
board
did the
members.
majority of the voting members.
Ooh, let me double check the policy. Sorry.
If we have a quorum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Otherwise, you'd have to
Yeah, hold on.
have 100% on all of them.
Just 1 second. Yeah. It's going to take me a minute. Why don't we have a little recess while I find the answer? Let's come back at 9 o'clock, please. All right, we are back.
Already said times that the principal of high school told me, like the girls told me that.
I think my mic is catching me.
Now it is.
Yeah.
Now it is.
Okay, beautiful. So we are back from recess. We were able to check multiple sources of Robert's rules, and the rule is that it is the majority of present voters, which means that the amendment did pass 4-2, and the students were voting with the negative. So the amendment passed, the parenthetical is gone. Are there any other amendments that need to come to the floor about this policy? Yes, Student Representative O'Brien.
Am I allowed to suggest something?
I would take a suggestion, yes.
Would language similar to something like at the end there, anytime a student is like no longer in the care of the district, kind of, it would talk about sort of the issue with off-campus lunch, but also a student is still in the care of the district or of the school when they're on a field trip. And that could be part of the discretion between, well, they're not in the school building anymore. Why can't they have their phones? They're still the responsibility of the school. The school can still ensure their safety and communication. I don't know. What's the thought?
So I'm hearing you say, like, if a student leaves campus without direct supervision from a PPS staff, that's kind of like what you're getting at, to like at that third line. So adding something that indicates like if you're with the PPS staff, no phone, otherwise.
Yeah, like just, and it's more specific about the discretion between the case of it being a field trip versus an off-campus lunch. Off-campus lunch, you're responsible for yourself. On a field trip, it's learning, but also you're still in the you're still the responsibility of the Portland Public Schools staff.
Board Member Bryden, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Taking that suggestion, I would make a motion to add at the end of that last sentence, making them accessible as students leave school, or the, oh, I just had it, I'm so sorry, or the responsibility of Portland Public Schools. Care, yep.
So can you read that? Can you say that again?
So I'm going to read what's there and then the tacking on part. when students enter school and for making them accessible as students leave school or the care of Portland Public Schools. That's the motion.
I would second that. Any discussion from the board or student representatives? All right, let's call for a vote.
Language there. Or 4A.
Or the care of Portland Public Schools.
At the end.
Yes, any other discussion? Okay, then I think, hold on, I'm gonna slow down just for a second. Mainly accessible as students leave school.
Need a motion?
I made the motion.
So yes, you made the motion. This is a discussion. Functionally inaccessible students enter school and for making them accessible as students leave school. And like if students leave school and for a field trip, it should not
instead of
be-
or.
It should be and instead of or. Would you take a friendly amendment? Okay, beautiful. Can we change that, Board Member Lena?
Would it make sense to remove the part in the first part of this paragraph that says electronic devices not issued by Portland Public Schools? Because we addressed that earlier in the policy.
I think can we stay on this amendment first? So there's a amendment on the table to add and the care of Portland Public Schools to the end of that bullet. It's been seconded. It is on the floor. Is there any other discussion about that amendment? Okay, I would like to take a vote, please. Dr. Warren?
Member Ali. Member Yusra Ali.
Yes.
Vice Chair Bondo.
Yes.
Member Bryden.
Yes.
Member Lena.
Yes.
Member Noor. Member Opperman.
Yes.
Student Representative Fitzgerald.
Yes.
Student Representative Kantiba. Student Representative Lee.
Yes.
Student Representative O'Brien.
Yes.
Student Representative Ziegler.
Yes.
Chair Lentz.
Yes, so that is unanimous with people that are present here and voting. So that is passed. Board Member Lena, did you have another potential amendment?
Yes, we just had discussed earlier that in section 2 of this policy, where it says policy statement, personal electronic devices that are not issued by Portland Public Schools shall not be available or accessible to students for the duration of the school day. I'm just wondering if in this section 4A, that piece that says electronic devices not issued by Portland Public Schools is necessary. It's just a question. I don't feel super strongly about it, but just for cleaning it up.
Other Board Member Bryden, go ahead.
It makes sense to talk it through. I mean, I think it makes sense to keep the phrase because I wouldn't want anything to be misconstrued to say, well, you know, you have this device that is the property of Portland Public Schools and you can't have it on your person. And to just be super clear that what we're talking about is mechanisms to ensure that students can't access this very defined category of personal electronic devices.
Any other thoughts, or is there a motion to bring to the floor? Okay, I see no motion on that. Is there any other amendments that need to be spoken or any other suggestions from student reps? I really appreciated that tag team approach that we just took. Okay, so we're gonna close discussion now. So we're gonna take the amended policy. Yes, that is up for a vote. So Dr. Scallon, can you please just review these amendments really quickly on your screen, if you could just, great. So just to review, we replaced the policy with the Bryden-Lentz amendment, and then we made these amendments to that policy. So that is what we will be voting on tonight. So Dr. Warren, when you're ready, if you could please call the roll.
Member Ali, Member Yusra Ali,
Yes.
Vice Chair Bondo,
Yes.
Member Bryden,
Yes.
Member Lena,
Yes.
Member Noor, Member Opperman,
Yes.
Student Representative Fitzgerald.
I'm so sorry for asking another question during voting, but is this voting on the entire policy? So voting on the
Amended.
Okay, voting on it just like to have it amended or to pass it completely?
To pass it completely.
Okay, no.
Student Representative Kantiba, Student Representative Lee,
No.
Student Representative O'Brien,
No.
Student Representative Ziegler,
No.
Chair Lentz.
Yes, so the policy passes as amended unanimously by board members with students voting against the majority. Thank you all for your participation in that process.
Can I still read my comment or my statement or no? I had a little statement. I was like raising my hand during public comment. Can I touch on that or is that still not right now?
So there are no longer opportunities. So the policy has been passed.
Right.
I will allow you to read a statement if you would like to, but that would have been in the discussion period for the policy.
Right, okay. Well, I guess I missed it, but I would just like to briefly, if I could, share some results of the survey I took. So I made a survey of my own, just for Portland High School students, and some of the major results were that majority or only 10% of the students that I surveyed out of 82 results knew about this policy 3 or more months ago, which still is within the span of time I was able to tell people about it. So I'm not quite sure how many of them learned about it on their own. There was 69% of people who learned about it within the last 1 to 3 months. And those people were also the vast majority of people who said that there was not enough outreach or opinion or time to share their opinion on the policy, which is funny to me because these last months are the times when the board has had these conversations or had these conversations around the phone policy. But like I said a little bit before, I'm not quite sure how much I expanded on it. A lot of the time students felt that the board had a very closed-minded point of view when they came into the school that they were talking to, mainly because they wanted the policy passed. And this just led to students not really feeling heard or valued, I guess, within the school community. So I think that was pretty interesting. Only at Portland, 44% of them feel comfortable using their phone in 25% of their classes. So the vast majority don't really feel comfortable using it the vast majority don't really feel comfortable using it, or not vast, a majority doesn't feel comfortable using it in a lot of their classes. And the majority of people, so 48% and 43% also said that students are either sometimes held accountable or completely held accountable to or held accountable when they use a phone right now that breaks the current policy in place. And I say this just to show that the policy in place, the phone hotels, the off and away, isn't completely dead. It's only it just needed to be re-upped in a way. It just needs to be revised in comparison to something, again, so punitive and what students feel will be ineffective. Just give me a second.
No, take your time.
Oh, okay.
I apologize that it was not clear earlier, so please take your time.
I guess one of the biggest parts I wanted to say was that this is a societal issue that affects virtually any age. And so to go back to a point I made earlier about the intent of the policy when it comes to trying to fix mental health or people talking to each other or whatever, we already have a lot of other things that we can compare to addictions, or we can compare this to alcohol or cigarettes. And in the world right now, it seems that there's a very do as I say, not as I do sort of feeling when it comes to these things. And so while a lot of adults who are for the phone policy like have done some research and know a lot about the effects of mental health or on mental health from phones and like how to not use phones detrimentally. On another form or like another like sheet that was sent to the board by like parents like listing their concerns, they said that even adults can't control themselves around these things. So I'm confused as to why rolling out a policy that would just tell kids to not use them without giving them any personal reason to not use them beforehand would work when adults themselves can't control themselves around these things. Yeah. Mm. Yeah, I do think that at the end of the day, it's like we've let phones become very integrated. And so if you wanted to educate around how to develop properly as a person without using phones, then adults themselves would have to do the exact same amount of work, if not more work, than students. And I just do not see that effectively happening within the next 3 months. Thank you.
Thank you, Student Representative Fitzgerald. I just want to thank everybody. Oh, was there something?
I just wanted to make, I think Representative Fitzgerald had a very good point about modeling and adults. And my expectation, even though this policy does not discuss adults doing it, it would seem to me that if, in order to really make this effective and demonstrate support for this, that the adults would not use their cell phones in the classroom as well.
Thank you, Board Member Opperman.
Can I just really quickly add something else very, very, very briefly?
Very quickly, and then we
Yes.
must move on.
Just very quickly, I just want to say kind of publicly about the trip to Morse. I talked to students individually as well, and this was also told to me by the principal, but at least half the students I talked to had their phones floating around loose in their bag. It was just like the fear factor, which another public commenter had said was really like the motivation behind not having their phone out. And so I do believe that there are other solutions and that we just haven't taken the adequate steps to figure that out. And then, yes, again, the principal, I did ask him about how many students do you think actually use the phone pouches? And he said at this point in time, probably 50%. And so I would just like to keep that in mind because I feel like while a lot of other school districts do this, a lot of other school districts don't. And just because it works for other people doesn't mean it will work here or belongs here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So I'm going to move us to our next item on the agenda, which is new business. Our first read of updated policy EBCA, which is our Comprehensive Emergency Management Plan. And this is one of our annual policies that comes up for review at the end of every school year. And Dr. Warren, if you just want to, is just going to speak to the policies or the changes that have been made to this, or the work that's been done on this policy. I will remind everyone that last year, Dr. Warren and her team put a tremendous amount of effort into updating this and the systems that surround it and support it. So I think this year there were smaller changes. With that, Dr. Warren, whenever you're ready.
So as I'm pulling this up and getting logged in here, the first thing I will just note is that the policy itself is very very simple. And the policy has not been, there's no request or suggestion to amend the policy itself. It's actually only the plan, which is something that accompanies the policy. So the plan gets reviewed and looked at every year. 1 second. Sorry, I'm not in the right way. Just give me 1 second. So the only piece that we are looking at here really, because there's no recommended policy change, are some fairly, sorry, just pulled up, fairly minor changes to the plan itself. And it's still not coming up right. Superintendent Scullin, can I ask you to help me? I'm just trying to project the plan with the red lines that's posted on board docs, and for some reason it's not showing up that way.
Yeah, I can pull it up and share it.
Thank you.
While we do that, I'm happy to announce that Portland Press Herald has said that our budget passed, everyone, by 67%. So that's only 11 precincts, but they're calling it. So thank you, everyone, and Jane Sawtell has won the board seat. Yeah, you can. That's great.
There, thank you. Okay, so again, there are very limited proposed changes, and in fact, what the law says and the policy says as well is that the board only needs to approve substantial changes, but this is an opportunity for the board to sort of revisit this. And so just a sort of reminder that the way that this plan is written is organized in accordance both with state law and with federal best practice from people like the Federal Emergency Management Agency. And so that's how this is all organized. It lays out the broad frame of how we handle emergencies in the district. It goes into quite a bit of detail, but it stops short of going into specific procedures because those are things that we hold tight and do not share publicly. So as you scroll down through the document, you see a lot of just changes in title because people's titles have changed, including my own. So that's one of the things you're seeing here is just a recognition of changes in titles to reflect current reality. You can keep scrolling. Dr. Scullin, can you scroll? Again, title change. Not a significant or substantial change. Another title change. And again. Okay, if we pause there. So just a couple changes to the calendar to reflect reality. This was all sort of mapped out last year based on our best hopes of how things might work, but just proposing a couple of smaller changes here to give a little more flexibility. As is happening this year, it just wasn't practical to get this in front of the board before June because of a lot of the other things that were going on. And so just giving ourselves some flexibility. We need to make sure we get it looked at and approved before the end of the school year. So we're ready to go into the new school year. But trying to give ourselves some more leeway there and then reflecting that substantial language that's in the policy as well. This was just a point of clarification because in rereading it, it did not seem clear enough. Just that when we're trying to manage an emergency situation, we have a whole chain of communications that takes place. So if something occurs at a school, there's an immediate communication to an assistant superintendent, Dr. Scullin, or myself. And then one of the district leads, usually Dr. Scullin, if he's not around, it would be me, would go and serve as an incident command on site alongside emergency responders and in support of school leaders. And so the way this was previously stated, it was a little bit unclear as to what happens in that interim period before the district leader gets there to help. So that's what this is attempting to clarify. And the communications systems, I mean, this is something that I think we heard a lot about during our outreach on cell phones. And it's something that we've been working on and talking about within the office, just making sure that we're clear about what some of those backup systems are in the event that our normal systems go down. We do actually have a WebEx phone app so that if you have a landline phone in your office, you can set that to ring to your cell phone. So even if the landline phone goes down, you actually still have access to that office number. So that's why that's added in there. We also wanted to recognize that WhatsApp is a very important platform for many of our families and especially our multilingual families. Often when our multilingual specialists and sometimes our teachers or other staff are communicating with families, it's via WhatsApp. And so we want to, acknowledge that that can also be an important communication platform in emergency situations. I can keep scrolling. More title changes, and then again, just trying to clarify a little bit the process when we're reaching out to parents and guardians. Not every situation merits a message to the entire school community. Some things are contained enough or locally isolated enough that it's more important to get a message to that particular school community. And so the first priority is to reach out to families whose children are in a school that's affected. And the messaging system that we use now universally is Reach My Teach. We no longer have School Messenger, so we've removed that here. And, for the benefit of the board and the community, the goal and the intent and generally the practice is we send that initial message, and then as soon as we're able and have more information, we send a follow-up message. And then later on, when we have more information still and have had a chance to communicate with law enforcement or whoever was involved and get more information, we will try to put out a more sort of thoughtful, longer communication. Sometimes we don't have the ability to share very much because of student privacy or because of staff privacy, medical issues, or because of law enforcement needing to put some boundaries around what's being communicated out. So we communicate as much as we can to provide information that people need, but within certain boundaries. And so we want to just be clear about that as well. I think we're at the end. So the only other thing I wanted to say in addition to these, as Chair Lentz said, relatively, small changes this year because this was essentially completely rewritten last year. So this is still a fairly new plan. Just to celebrate that a lot has happened in this past year, in addition to creating the new plan, we did a very extensive new sort of form and process for each site to create their own site-based plan. Again, those are not things that we share publicly, but they are very long and detailed, and a lot of thought went into those. And I was very pleased that a number of school leaders really took time to coordinate across their campuses. So as an example, this campus here includes Casco Bay and Paths. Our facilities team, a chunk of the facilities team sits here. Our transportation team sits just down the hill. So we actually have a lot of different folks here, and they, made a point of coming together and coordinating with one another, which is exactly what we asked for and what we want to continue to see. We also set very high standards for our schools this year around drills. We required more than the state requires, and they really came through and have done the drills. Last year, we were lagging behind a little bit, and we saw some schools that were not keeping up with the drills through the year, but trying to kind of do them more towards the end. And this year, folks have really stepped up and done those drills throughout the year. So just very happy to see that as well. And, we have work to do. We're not by any means perfect. We have a lot that we need to continue to work on. But we have had some, I just think, really good buy-in from folks on this and a lot of engagement and hard work. So we will keep leaning into it. Duly, have taken in the information and the feedback about needing to strengthen communication systems. And so that will certainly be one of our areas of focus as we go forward into the new year.
Beautiful. Any questions? Yeah, go ahead. Board Member Lena.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I just have a question. I have the document pulled up on Board Docs, and I believe it's the same one. And it just says at the very top, Comprehensive Emergency Management Plan, draft May 3rd, 2024. And I don't know if that's...
I think maybe that's just that's last year's date and just didn't get changed. I'm not in it right now. Let's see.
Yeah.
So we can correct that.
Thank you.
Beautiful. So this will be coming up for second read and a vote at our next meeting. Beautiful. All right. So we're going to move on to personnel now. I love what's the verb for that? Jennifer Scoot.
Yeah. Hi. All right. Well, thank you for, this has been a very good meeting. I was a little distracted. I was getting some work done. So thank you for having me up here today to ask for some approval. I think if we can, I'll do the approval part first, but I do have two people to introduce. So I'll also do that. But the first order of business is requesting the board's review and approval for our personnel update administrators. Again, like I did last board meeting, the top two are the ones that we're requesting board approval, and the second two are informational pieces.
Beautiful. So I'd be looking for a motion for the consideration action to approve the personnel items listed, election of administrators. Thank you, Board Member Bryden. Is there a second? Thank you, Board Member Lena. Any questions from the board on these positions? Let me just double check for Vice Chair Bondo. Okay, I see no questions. So then by roll call vote, please indicate whether you are in favor of the consideration action to approve personnel items listed, election of administrators. Dr. Warren, are you ready to call the roll? Beautiful.
Member Ali. Member Yusra Ali.
Yes.
Vice Chair Bondo.
Yes.
Member Bryden.
Yes.
Member Lena.
Yes.
Member Noor. Member Opperman.
Yes.
The student representatives have all departed, and Chair Lentz.
Yes. So the motion passes unanimously. I'd love to, offer opportunity to introduce these folks.
Thank you so much. So I also got the signal from the boss over there. Do you want to go first, or would you like me to do mine? And then, okay. So I think we have a third person that Dr. Scallon will do an introduction for after I do these first two. So I'll start with someone who was not on this approval today, was actually on the last board meetings. And I want to start with an apology to Taryn, because through a little miscommunication, she's now gotten to sit through two board meetings around cell phone policy. But I'll ask Taryn to come up. Wasn't prepared to introduce her last time. So now I am. Now I've got the write-up. So excited to announce that Taryn Southard has been selected as the newest lead teacher at Reiki Elementary School. She has, so I'm going to give you a little blurb, then we'll let you know, you can ask her all the questions you want. So she has 18 years of experience in education, 10 of those years proudly served in the Portland Public Schools. Ms. Southard is excited to continue building the strong relationships she has developed at Reiki School, where she has been an instructional coach this year. Prior to joining Reiki, Ms. Southard was a second grade teacher and instructional coach at Talbot Community School, and she worked with infants through 5th grade at a school in Virginia. She has served on the elementary advisory team and as a building representative and the vice president of the Portland Education Association. Ms. Southard graduated from the George Washington University with a bachelor's degree in international affairs and the University of Southern Maine with a master's degree in teaching and learning. She is certified as a teacher of English for speakers of other languages and is currently part of the Leaders for Tomorrow's Schools cohort at the University of Southern Maine, working toward her assistant principal certification. Taryn and her family are avid Hearts of Pine and Liverpool soccer fans, and they enjoy spending the summer at her family camp on Sebago Lake. So welcome, Taryn, and I'm glad that you came back. Thank you for coming back.
Thank you. I'm happy to talk about the Hearts of Pine. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I'm so excited. I've had a really wonderful year at Reiki, and I'm really excited to keep that community. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you.
No questions?
I just wanted to, in the limited interactions I've had with you, your warmth is just so palpable, and I just am incredibly grateful that you have moved into this role, and we are lucky to have you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Okay, and the next I wanted to introduce Lori Cloutier, who will be our new principal at Lyseth Elementary School. Thank you to our union folks in the back, continuing the very rigorous and excited clapping. Ms. Cloutier has 20 years of in-depth experience in education, ranging from being an ed tech to an assistant principal. Ms. Cloutier is honored to be chosen as Lyseth's new principal and looks forward to working together with the Lyseth community to support the academic, social, and emotional growth of every student. She brings a deep commitment to fostering a learning environment where every child feels seen, supported, and empowered to succeed. Ms. Cloutier joins us from New Hampshire, where she is completing her 7th year as assistant principal at Northwest Elementary School. Prior to that, she was an assistant principal at a middle school in New Hampshire and a special educator, case manager at Northwest Elementary School, where she began her career in education as an ed tech. Three members of the search committee visited Ms. Cloutier at her current school and were impressed with the positive school culture and focus on core curriculum. During Ms. Cloutier's time as assistant principal at Northwest, she has worked closely with staff and families to strengthen academic and behavioral supports through that school's multi-tiered systems of support. She's been deeply involved in promoting literacy through evidence-based practices rooted in the science of reading, and she led the implementation of her school's social emotional learning and student leadership program. So many great connections. I can see why you were selected. In addition to her school-based work, Ms. Cloutier teaches graduate-level courses in special education at Southern New Hampshire University, where she mentors future educators in best practices, instructional strategies, and inclusive learning. Ms. Cloutier holds a bachelor's degree in communication arts from the University of New Hampshire. She also has a master's degree in educational leadership from Southern New Hampshire University. And on a personal note, Ms. Cloutier is married and has 2 adult daughters and 3 lovable dogs. She enjoys relaxing at the beach, reading a good book, and spending quality time with her family. Ms. Lori Cloutier.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for having me here tonight. I wanted to share that I was able to spend the day at Lyseth today. It's my 2nd visit there, but I was there all day today. I got to spend the time meeting staff and students. I met some families. My greatest takeaway today was the children are just absolutely wonderful and welcoming. I was pleasantly surprised to receive as many hugs as I did. Which was very nice, and it speaks really highly to the environment. I mean, I said to Sarah and Talia afterwards, I said, the fact that they're so friendly and so it shows how safe and trusting they feel in their school environment, and that's a huge testament to the culture that they have there. So very positive staff, very upbeat. I'm super excited to start the year. Thank you.
Beautiful. Welcome to the district.
Thank you.
Any questions from the board before? The eagerness. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Superintendent.
Yes, good evening. I have the honor of doing the 3rd of the introductions. Tonight, I'm going to introduce Dr. Cheryl Proctor, who, as became clear in the interview process, is both a dedicated and visionary educational leader, committed to bringing world-class practices and innovative approaches to school districts. As an immigrant who deeply values the transformative power of education, Dr. Proctor's earned numerous academic and professional accolades, including the prestigious Distinguished Alumni Award from Florida Atlantic University School of Education. Dr. Proctor is joining us most recently from Portland Public Schools on the West Coast, where she was the deputy superintendent, overseeing a number of areas, including all of their academic functions. Prior to that, Dr. Proctor was an assistant superintendent in the School District of Philadelphia, has been a principal, assistant principal, and at her core is a special education teacher. And so very excited to welcome Dr. Proctor and her experiences to be our Chief of Schools and Academics. And Dr. Proctor has joined us and has been with us now for just over 2 weeks, working hybrid, and is fully in person on June 20th, but is joining us here tonight via Zoom. So I'd love to turn it over to Dr. Proctor for her welcome.
Good evening, everyone. I'm so excited to be here and to join Portland Public Schools to serve in this new capacity. It's been a pleasure just meeting and getting to know the dedicated staff, to see the grounding work that you are already embarked on to really improve and take care of the educational outcomes for all of the children. I look forward to being a part of all of those conversations and to lead the efforts of schools and the academics so that we can realize the potential of every child in the city of Portland, Maine, getting a high quality education. So I'm really excited. I look forward to meeting so many more of you and having great conversations and thinking about how we will work together to do this good work.
Thank you. Yeah. Will you come to my house? Just follow me around. I like it.
Let's do it. I'll learn.
Welcome, Cheryl. Yeah, would any other board members like to say anything?
Well, thank you. And it's nice to hear with Dr. Cheryl and the other, that we're getting some good special ed specialties in the districts, because that's been something we've wanted for a bit. So welcome aboard.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Beautiful. Anything else?
No, we're ready for the next.
All right. So now we're going to move into a workshop around the progress of the progressive discipline policy work group that's been going on.
And just as the co-chairs for that work, Dr. Atkinson-Duena and Miss Audrey Cabral join here, just want to make note that we're happy to take questions on this, but we're not doing this in the sort of like workshop format, but really intend for it to be an update as this is sort of a moment in time on this work, and then we'll continue.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Hang in there. Good evening, members of the board. I'm Angela Atkinson-Duena, Assistant Superintendent of Elementary Schools. And for this part of the agenda, I'm here as the co-chair of the district-wide Progressive Discipline Task Force.
Audrey Cabral. I'm co-chair of the district-wide Progressive Discipline Task Force. And I've been a music teacher in Portland Public Schools. This is the end of my 36th year. And I'm also treasurer of the Portland Education Association, which was for 10 years, multiple years ago. And I don't know if this is year 4 or 5. So. So the next slide shows you the main purposes about our task force, and our agenda tonight is to update you on the progress of a task force, the current status of progressive discipline documents in our district, and share with you our recommended next steps. So the charge of our task force was to review PPS student discipline policies and procedures and develop a draft proposed progressive discipline document that would be used to guide the work of schools in supporting positive behavior and in managing unexpected behaviors that detract from the learning environment. And this comes from the origin of agreement between district administration, school board, and the Portland Education Association. The expectation was that we would present drafts by the end of the school year, and we would use these starting in the fall of 25. We have partially met that expectation. While drafts are not at all complete, we expect to complete them over the summer so that we're ready for implementation in the fall.
So what have we done so far? We have had 6 full group sessions plus additional planning session. We reviewed the current state of behavioral data and practices. We reviewed current documents that schools use to guide responses to student behavior, as well as documents from other schools and districts. We developed and reviewed draft progressive discipline documents for all grade levels, with elementary and middle level drafts further along in the process. We reviewed PBIS criteria for progressive discipline. We also engaged in discussion of training recommendations to support a progressive discipline approach. Outside of the task force, Audrey and board member Lena took time to visit a neighboring school district where there has been a long-term commitment to PBIS and brought back examples to share. We provided a progress update for the board in May, and then I hosted a meeting with school and district leaders to ensure their awareness and support for this work. All of this in the very busy months of May and June. So. Now that we've kind of provided an overview of the task force charge and activities, we want to provide some framing to contextualize our work around progressive discipline within the overarching focus on positive youth development that our schools have. I think it's important to remember that youth and adolescence is a time of incredible growth and brain development. It's a time of identity formation and increasing independence. The range of behaviors that we see our kids exhibit are not unexpected for this time of growth and exploration. I just, for a minute, want you to imagine having 7,000 youth over to your house for about 7 hours. That's what we do almost every day. And our focus on positive relationships is a strong source of support for students. A progressive discipline model aligns with what we know about healthy youth development by focusing on teaching and growth as well as accountability for actions. So I'm going, for positive youth development and progressive discipline are not in conflict with each other, even though the words progressive and discipline are charged with emotion. Since this has come up before in our committee, I'd like to point out that when we talk about progressive, in this context, we are not talking about liberal or conservative in a political sense. We mean that there are structured steps in a response to student behavior with different levels of response depending on the behavior, how extreme it is, and the frequency of it. For example, a student who runs into someone in the hallway receives a different correction than a student who deliberately pushes someone in the hallway. Similarly, when we talk about discipline, we do not mean punishment. We mean to convey a sense of training that happens in a controlled and educational way. Sometimes we use the phrase response to behavior as a synonym for discipline. And then as a starting place for our draft documents, we relied on the PBIS framework, which our district uses. It includes guidance for progressive discipline models, and we also relied on a progressive response protocol that had already been developed last year as part of a year-long process at the middle school. Even though we had some documents to start from, members of the task force all agreed that there had not been enough focus this year in terms of how these protocols were being implemented within and across different schools or in other grade levels where progressive protocols were not in place. So we recognize that we can do better in terms of clarity, consistency, and communication.
Our current draft shows different levels of behavior and possible responses. They clarify when something should be addressed by an educator and when they should be addressed by a building leader or a school administrator. Sorry. At this point in the year, our middle school draft is being, sorry.
You just need to use the mic for people at home.
Sorry. At this point in the year, our middle school draft is being refined. An elementary draft has been developed, but still needs review in the high school draft as well. In addition to the grade level drafts, the task force also identified a need for a document that would communicate how PPS responds to major disruptive behaviors. This is presented in the draft that you see here. The current in-progress status is not reflective of commitment to this work. It is simply a reflection of the challenges of working as a limited task force during the last 2 months of the school year. This is particularly true for our high school colleagues who have been focused on graduating students. To make documents meaningful in school communities, there is a need to focus on completing the drafts in time for fall. The next level of revisions will include clear, common responses to certain specific behaviors across schools at different grade levels. These are in development and are not on the draft documents because of the need to engage school administrators in this discussion. We've also identified a need for engaging staff and school communities more broadly. We expect to have workable drafts for our August Institute that school communities can work on. Finally, the task force identified a need for more attention to implementation throughout the upcoming school year. This should allow us to make improvements and revisions during the first year of implementation.
So the steps that we're recommending are the following. Complete the drafts so that they are ready for all levels in the fall. Add this work to our summer leadership retreats and the August Institute for staff, providing summer opportunities for task force members to provide input. Add this work to the strategic plan for the upcoming year, creating intentional opportunities for engagement with staff, school communities, and monitoring implementation. Also, add this work to the agenda for grade level and school teams for the upcoming year. And then carve out time for assistant principals to engage regularly to norm and adjust as needed. We also need to work on developing and planning training needed by staff to implement the progressive discipline model. Some key takeaways. The task force has been a launchpad for this effort, providing time and opportunity for discussion and alignment around the shared goal of creating positive, vibrant learning communities for staff and students. The behaviors we see in PPS are part of the full range of normal youth development, and we can improve on our clarity and consistency. You may remember that the attuned diagnostic that we saw earlier this year identified strong conditions for learning and also a desire for more consistent responses and more clarity around consequences for behavior.
We know that even the best, most clear policies and protocols are dependent on implementation. This requires consistent and intentional work and time. School culture work of any kind is dependent on collective engagement of staff, families, students, or buy-in. A task force alone cannot do this, but together school communities can. Drafts are a starting point for us to begin the year. Further refinement, practice, and correction will need to happen at the school level, horizontally at grade levels, and vertically across the district.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you for the update. Board members, what questions do you have? Board member Lena, go ahead.
Thank you. I have a question, something that came up on the visit that I took with Ms. Cabral was the importance of using data in terms of inputting information about students with regard to progressive discipline. And in a conversation that I had with a staff member, a Portland Public Schools staff member, was that they are tasked presently with inputting discipline data into the system, but they often do not because they worry that putting in that information might flag them as a teacher that struggles with classroom management or something like that. And they don't want it to reflect poorly on them. And we brought this up with the staff and leadership at the other school, and they said something that was so important to them was to clearly message to staff that this data is so important and it does not reflect on you as a teacher. And so I just really want to make sure that that's super clear and made clear to staff that we're doing this collectively and it's really important and you will not be penalized for inputting this kind of data, because I think it really creates this negative tension and it doesn't serve the staff or the student. So it's not really a question, I guess, but more of a make sure we do this, please. Thank you.
We discussed that in our task force meetings as well, about, because we had been to see that and hear that it's also for the benefit of the student to help them with their behavior. So that was talked often. We mentioned that in our meetings as a task force.
One other thing that from our task force that came up about the data and putting it all in is that I think across the board, we're not sharing that data back to schools very well. And so that's really the important part of it, is that whenever you do like that data and then you bring it back to staff and you're saying like, oh, wow, we've got all these issues that are coming up in the hallway. What are we going to do? And then you do the problem solving around that, create the plan. And then the next time you look at the data, you're like, okay, did our plan work? Did our plan not work? And if we're not using that data and bringing it back to staff on a regular basis, or maybe just sometimes I think a small team sees it. And so, we need to plan some opportunities for whole staff to really see the data and the impact of the work that they're doing. So, yeah.
Beautiful. Vice Chair Bondo, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation. I have just some clarification question. I think if I read really well, you put on some of those slides the launch during around fall, I think. So I just wonder if you can have a little details on which part we may be ready to be launched during fall, and if we have some work to do during summer, or everything will come back in September.
Oh, we definitely have work to do over the summer. I do the middle. I don't. Audrey might be able to speak to the middle school document. That is well developed. Elementary, I feel like, is almost there. I feel like that. And the high school one, really, we had fewer high school members on our task force, and then also at the end of the year, it was harder to get them. They just were very busy. So that one, I think, will need a little work with me and Dr. Ahmed and some of the high school members on the task force over the summer. So there will be some summer work. We are carving out that time with the kind of drafts ready to go for the August Institute.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Dr. Atkinson. Thank you, Chair.
Board Member Bryden, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the update and the information. I have a question. I have something that I want to express gratitude for, and then I have a follow-up question about it. So I really appreciate the explanation and the clarity around the fact that we're talking about kids who are going to make mistakes, and that's normal. And, it's an opportunity to learn. And I really appreciate that framing. My follow-up question about that is something that I'm not seeing in the slides, and I'm assuming or hoping that it's been part of your conversations, and I'm thinking perhaps it just didn't, make it to the slides. Can you talk a little bit about helping students with unexpected or inconvenient behaviors build the skills they need to get to where they need to be? And to be really, really clear, I'm not saying like, oh, they just don't have the skills, it's fine. Like, part of the project is to help them build the skills so that the entire community can be more successful. So I would love to hear a little bit more about that.
Take that one. Yeah.
That has been talked about often, and I think in reference with putting behaviors in Swiss, and it goes back to when we talk to administrators about helping that child with the skills and the behaviors and working on them in community of what they need to do so that they're successful as well. So yeah, there's been a lot of discussions. It's really been very good work, a lot of good discussions, and a lot of really hardworking people at all levels to help all of our students be successful in the schools and then when they're out of school.
Thank you for confirming. I'm not surprised to hear that that was part of the discussion.
I have just a technical question. Will Swiss connect to Power Schools, or are they separate systems? How does that?
So they are separate systems, but Haley and her team we made a couple connections. So Joanna has a connection from another school district that has been able to make the connection between Swiss and Power Schools. So we have kind of put those two data mines together so that we can learn how to make those connections in our system. It is possible. So, yeah.
Beautiful. I'm glad we're thinking about that in this world of data that we're working on. And then I'm just curious how you've been talking about biases that may come up within the discipline process, how to mitigate for those, how to train around those, how to identify when they're happening, and then provide support for folks.
I'll say one thing. One of the reasons behind a progressive discipline protocol is to help school administrators align on what are common responses to behavior so that we're not in the heat of the moment, just whatever, willy-nilly, deciding what happens. So that is one of the reasons that schools and districts go in that direction. And then I would definitely go back to the data collection piece, that is just like with all our data, we have to continually look at where we might be having those disparities in the data, and then figuring out, why is that happening? So those are two things that.
Beautiful. Thank you for naming those things. And I think as in the strategic plan, I think it's 1.1 or 2.1, which is the bucket of equity that works on mindset, and 1.1, I just think like as much as we can also be connecting what's happening within that to this, because I just think they're so interconnected. Board Member Lena, go ahead.
So you mentioned that there are different policies that are being drafted for the elementary, middle, and high school. Is the language similar among them so that students, when they go from 5th to 6th grade, they're familiar with the expectation, what they're, is it like you go to middle school and like everything that was expected at elementary is the same so that you're not rewriting the rules in your brain every time?
You can talk about how.
I think when we talk about that, first aligning within the levels of K to 5, and then the documents that are being drafted and being worked on are similar with some of the same behaviors and some different behaviors that you're not going to see at the elementary schools that you see at middle or high school. So, but that the nothing is a surprise when students leave a level or leave a building and go to a different school in Portland at the same level, that there's consistency. And then it's consistency or fluidity between leaving a K to 5 level and going 6 to 8, that similar languages. And in the middle school, administration worked, they worked as a team to come up with a really well-worded, wordy document that's really useful, and we talked a lot about that and used that to base some of what's coming, that's still in discussion at all levels.
I would just add that, we do have to, we obviously took into consideration developmental level and where students are on that. So you would see some progression from, expectations rise as kids get older. So, some physical stuff at the elementary level, especially the beginning of the year, sometimes happens in early grades as we get everybody all together. When that stuff is happening in the high school level, there's a lot less tolerance for that because that's a totally different environment. So I think that there really is some intentionality, and the structure that we used is we did use the middle school model that they had developed because they had spent so much time on it already. And then also using the PBIS framework helps to keep consistency across those grade levels.
Board Member Upperman, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for this. This is hard work. And to be frank, it's also very hard for the teachers and the staff in the fall. You're also planning a significant ongoing PD to kind of remind people that this is the best way to do it, because I think that's, I know you do. You're smart.
Yeah, we had talked about reminders, refreshers, since we have the ability to meet and we do meet every week, to have ongoing discussions about, and then turn around how staff presents that to their students in the classroom, and the reminders in the classroom when board member, Lena, I don't know which one is, I want to be correct, board member.
My last name?
Yeah, do I
Lena.
use your last name?
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry, Lena.
That's fine.
When we went and visited the schools, pretty much every classroom you walked into had the expectations, and they were the same expectations as you walked into classrooms. And so it is reminders and for staff and for staff with students.
Thank you.
I just had one last question. Now that you have gotten so far into the work, are you finding that you are missing any perspectives on the task force? Like, do you feel like you need to add any voices or perspectives?
I mean, I think we have not engaged families and some of the I think as deeply as we would like. We do have some parents on the task force, but we have talked about opportunities for that. I think that is really best suited at the school level where people already have relationships. So that is what we would, help support school leaders in having those opportunities at the school level in the fall. So.
Board Member Opperman?
That might be something with parent university at a micro level. I think sometimes parent university is a lot of people, but at a micro level, that'd be awesome.
That has come up as a suggestion too. So, yeah.
Beautiful. And then just one last question, and I'm not sure who should be answering this, but when will the board get another update on this? Or if we don't know, that's okay too, but.
I mean, it would be in the fall. If the board's requesting one in August, we could certainly do that. This is a task force. This isn't in response to a specific policy. And so I think we're not going to put something up for a vote.
Yep.
But if we can work at the deference of the board, we don't have that planned out yet, just based on where they'll be with summer work, as well as the need to do training and then launching.
Beautiful.
So yeah.
Okay. I would have a small preference for maybe October after we've landed. And I'd love to see, how August orientation went, how early implementation is going, and kind of what you're seeing in data. That's my preference. Sweet.
Could I just add to that too? That involvement of the school communities when they're presented with the documents that we have in the fall, that involvement. So I think October sounds realistic.
Okay.
Well,
beautiful. That's what we like. Realistic. Okay.
This isn't being recorded, right? So
yes, that is on the record. Any other questions or comments from the board? All right, then. Seeing none, thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
And then I think.
Could I stay and make a statement?
About?
From the Portland Education Association on behalf of the Progressive Discipline?
Oh, yes. If it's still in this category, please.
Okay, thank you. Oh, sorry. On behalf of the Portland Education Association, we would like to thank the superintendent and the board for your collaboration in this difficult work with the PPS educators on our proposal for a progressive discipline task force. We'd also like to thank Angela for co-chairing and thank every member of the committee for their time and their commitment. The original ask on this came from educators seeking guidance and consistency in terms of responses to student behaviors, educators who often felt left without a plan or a protocol in direction in terms of what to do, who to connect with, and where to go when trying their very best to meet the needs of the students in their care. The other larger request for this task force was to include parent contact and collaboration in every step, as we know there is no success without the whole child, the whole family approach. The task force was composed of district PBIS managers, ed techs working in SPED and behavioral intervention positions, and somebody had asked earlier who was on the committee, elementary, middle school, and high school administrators, educators working in various special education and behavioral intervention roles, such as the BCBAs, which are board certified behavior analysts, school counselors, the district Title IX coordinator, a PPS parent, and classroom and core subject educators. The group, we had our first meeting the end of April, and we met for a total of 6 sessions. Once we started with an interest in district-wide consistency, we broke out into 3 groups, elementary, middle, and high school, with the understanding that there would be different developmental levels that require different responses and solutions. The group also benefited from the fact for the past 3 years, our middle school administrators have worked tirelessly to come up with a document that reflects their team approach and their collaboration. One of the slides that we had breaks down the middle school work in terms of responses for Tier 2 and Tier 3's behavior is due to Blake Castle's hard work. And I have to say that I use the word Castlefy a lot because Blake is so good at taking the words and just making the slides all pretty and understandable. I don't know if Blake's listening, but thank you because it's been nice. Go ahead, Blake, you take that. And when we see you next week, we can appreciate that she does that. Upon reflection, this group was not able to make the anticipated progress due to the reality that meetings tended to get held up by ground level debate regarding philosophy and approach, as well as who owns this count of decision making. Ultimately, we had hoped the vigorous debates would move the work, but as much as our time was spent on trying to find common ground, we're not able to get there for these 6 meetings. Moving forward, however, the educators of the PEA remain deeply invested in this work, and we're looking forward to conversations planned around this over the summer. Respectfully submitted on behalf of the Portland Education Association, Audrey Cabral, Treasurer.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Really helpful. And now I would like to move to adjourn. Is there a second? Board Member Opperman, thank you very much. All those in favor? We are adjourned at 10:12.